What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Good to see you guys. A little bit of a low energy kind of a Thursday around here. Just getting through the day. Had a couple drinks last night with my buddy Charlie. It was good to see him. First time in a couple of weeks that he was over. He was away with the family and so on and so forth. We were catching up a little bit. Had a few beers. Didn't really have any dinner. Just woke up feeling not hungover, not bad, but just kind of, again, low energy. But it was good to see Charlie. He was telling me all about he went to a Cape Cod League game while he was up in the Cape. Really cool. If you're not familiar, it's an invite-only semi-pro prospect type thing, wood bat baseball, a lot of really cool locations, and just, kind of small, independent summer league. That movie, Summer Catch, is that the name of it? Freddie Prinze Jr. baseball movie. I think that's the name of it. Now I gotta look. Nailed it. Summer Catch. That was the Matthew Lillard's in that too, huh? How about that? Jessica Biel, Brittany Murphy, Wilmer Valderrama. There's a name we haven't heard in a while. Yeah, anyway, not a good movie, but has to do with the Cape Cod League. Anyway, was hearing all about that from Charlie. Seemed like a cool time up there. Hopefully everybody's night went well. Yankees put a bunch of runs on the board later in that game, but then ended up losing another stupid game in a stupid way. Hopefully get back on track for some W's. But, another painful one for the Yanks. A couple of really hard-hit balls. Judge put one off the very top of the wall for a double that scored a couple of runs that could have been an inch further, would have been a home run, and would have changed the nature of the game. But a lot of fireworks in that one, with Toronto also teeing off on Will Warren early yesterday. Didn't get what we were looking for out of Clay Kershaw last night, unfortunately. He did get to his 3,000th strikeout, though. So, Hall of Fame pitcher. Getting over a major, major milestone, top 20 all time. Pretty awesome. And a very short list of amazing pitchers that he joins up there. Not that he wasn't already on that list. But anyway, 7 games tonight to talk about on DraftKings. 8 games, including this first one on the FanDuel slate. FanDuel starting up at 6:45 to catch the Tigers and Nats game. A little bit of rain in the area, something to watch. Just the Nats tend to be a little bit sensitive about weather. Roth has it green-yellow, so it should be fine, but just keep an eye out if you're playing that FanDuel slate, just in case. Would buy you some time. You move everything back and just play it as a late swap starting from the 7 o'clock games. There's also a lot of weather in the Brewers-Mets game. Apparently today, Roth wrote like a whole paragraph about it. You can go read it over on RG. Long story short, yellow. Go check back closer to lock. Keep an eye on that one. Everything else weather-wise, you're totally fine. But that's just wanted to call it out early because this outlier FanDuel game is a little bit spotty, just given how Washington is. What we've got overall on both sites is kind of a mediocre pitching board. There are usable pitchers, like Clark Schmidt's not bad, but facing Toronto is not necessarily great. Same thing that happened to Will Warren could definitely happen to Clark Schmidt. Seth Lugo against Seattle, fine, but not overly appealing. Peterson, Chris Bassett, Brandon Pfaadt, who's struggled through lots of the season. It's a really, really shallow, questionable pitching slate. And even Robbie Ray, the nominal ace of the slate, is not someone that we typically trust. And he's facing the Diamondbacks. Not a great spot. Really, really tough pitching board. Should be an interesting one to look into. Kind of like Dustin May against those White Sox, but we just saw them put a couple runs on Clay Kershaw, who's quite a bit better than Dustin May. Not that that actually factors into it, but it just throws in the wrinkle of like even the White Sox put a couple runs on a pitcher and changed the nature of his night. Kershaw put up like 15 FanDuel points last night. It just wasn't enough. Turned out they were correct with that price for a night. That is not the right tab. That first game on FanDuel, Tigers at the Nats, a 9-run total for the game. The Tigers pulling nearly 5 runs, looking pretty solid on that FanDuel slate. I kind of like the looks of some of those Tigers bats. They lost Kerry Carpenter to the injured list, but they still got a couple primo options there to throw at Jake Irvin, a pretty mediocre righty. It's Dietrich Enns on the mound for Detroit, making his second start in the show this year. Enns is 34, not a prospect by any means. He went over to Japan and to Korea for a couple of years from 22 to 24. Came back. He's been pitching in AAA decent AAA numbers as a 34-year-old pitching in AAA, so do with that what you will. I prefer the Nationals bats on the other side of that one, 4.20 implied total for them, so we can at least consider some of those top of the lineup Nats. Yanks at the Blue Jays. Yanks pulling in another decent total. They're facing Chris Bassett, 4.5 runs implied for them, and they're just going to be undeniably up close to the top of the board against most average to below average pitchers, and Bassett kind of fills that role of just like an average pitcher, maybe a little bit above. And I said similar things about Jose Barrios yesterday, and he was looking pretty sharp against them for a little while there until it all kind of fell apart. Could be that kind of night for Bassett as well, but he is more than good enough to have that successful day against the Yanks, have it not fall apart, find a few Ks along the way. So Bassett's going to be in play as much as the Yankees are. The Blue Jays bats, up and down team, weird, funky lineup today, going up against Schmidt, who again is pretty good, has given us depth and quality over 3 of his last 4 outings. Last time out, he faced the A's. He gave up 4 earned runs, but still struck out 7. The earned runs came on 2 home runs. So a little bit forgivable around the hard-hitting A's team. Was very good over the 3 immediately before that. Has had a good 75 innings, 13 starts so far this season. So definitely an in-play option, but it is a low strikeout Blue Jays lineup. On a messy pitching slate, though, I'm happy to get some shares of Clark Schmidt. Jose Quintana on the mound for the Mets. For the Brewers. David Peterson on the mound for the Mets. I kind of like Peterson's upside. Checking the Brewers down to a 3.88 implied total on their side of this one. And then the Mets pulling a 4.72 implied against Quintana. He could be a little bit slippery, a little bit sneaky as far as just a lower owned option. He does typically give you 6 if he's going well, although a lot of 5s on the season this year. 2 starts ago, he gave us 6, no runs, 3 hits, 1 strikeout, 4 walks, kind of a mediocre start, kind of caught in between start against the Twins. Last time out, 5 2/3, was chasing that 6th inning against the Rockies, but gave up 4 runs, struck out 5, walked 2. Was giving us a little bit more depth. It was a weird little stretch of oh, that's right. That's what it is. He missed some time there. So he pitched up to May 9th and was giving us his usual depth, and then came back. His first 2 starts back were 5 innings apiece, and then a 4 1/3, but he gave up 5 earned runs in that 4 1/3. But he missed like 3 weeks in there that I'd forgotten about. That's where a little bit of the lack of depth that caught my eye came from. Overall, we're talking about a low strikeout, probably not going to get through this game kind of an option, but I think he's a little bit of a wild card on a weird short pitching slate. Bats on either side of that one definitely in play, and the Mets bats more especially definitely in play. Jose Soriano on the mound for the Angels, facing that hard-hitting but overall kind of underwhelming Braves team. Bryce Elder going for the Braves. We can draw bats on either side of that one. We can draw shares of either of those pitchers on this funky pitching slate. So I think that's a 4 corners game, but we probably lean bats given where Vegas is, especially on the Braves side at 4.98 implied runs, the second highest total on the board. A lot of juicy totals, though. You've got that monster down there. You've got all 3 of these, both of those. So some pretty hardy teams and stacks to sink your teeth into. Guardians and the Cubs. Joey Cantillo on the mound for the Guardians because Luis Ortiz is being investigated for gambling, which is not great for his future outlook. And Cade Horton going for the Cubs. He's been pretty rough in a few of his starts, most notably the last time out, gave up 7 earned runs to Houston over 4 innings at Houston, struck out just 2, walked 4. The strikeouts haven't really been there. The quality's, kind of up and down. Not totally reliable to throw at a good enough Guardians lineup. He does have them checked down under 4 runs, though, while his team's pulling a 4.60. So on an literally anything can happen kind of a pitching slate. No issues with throwing some shares of Cade Horton at the Guardians. I don't think we're taking anybody off the slate, really. Robbie Ray is your slate leader, not in faith, but definitely in, overall projection as well as price. Handful of starts in a row where he gave up 2, 3 earned runs, but nothing tragic along the way. Strikeouts have dipped a little bit over his last 4 starts. Maxed out at 7 2 starts ago, 2 5 strikeout games and a 6 strikeout game. That was coming off of striking out 9 in 3 out of 5 starts and 7 in the other 2. A little bit more limited for depth in these more recent starts as well. Just maybe something to keep an eye on after a stretch of starts where he was also just going 6 or 7, pretty reliably. It's been 5 or 6 in the more recent outings. Not that it's anything overly noteworthy, but just something to make a note about. So I guess it is noteworthy. Overall, a lot of strikeout upside, a lot of downside comes via walks. That could definitely bite him against a good Diamondbacks lineup that is good for sequencing. They've got a lot of power showing, just given his career history of allowing home runs, and he's allowed a few along the way this season. He's been mostly sharp, but in this slight downturn over the last few starts, and it's a very slight downturn, has been giving up some home runs. So, again, something to consider. Brandon Pfaadt on the mound for the Diamondbacks. Last time out, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, struck out 7 against Miami. Pretty solid bounce back. That's coming off of 4 earned runs at Colorado. Struck out 7 in that game. Coors Field game, you can kind of forgive, but it hasn't really been pretty overall. 2 5-inning games in earlier June against the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Gave up just 2 runs, struck out a handful of hitters, but wasn't exactly peak form. We know that he's quite a bit better than he's been this year. Maybe he's intriguing on this weird pitching slate, but the Giants pulling a 4.44 implied total against the Mariners and the Royals. Royals looking pretty low end. So are the Mariners in that pitcher's park. It's Logan Evans on the bump for the Mariners and Seth Lugo going for the Royals. I think both pitchers are in play. Evans hasn't been bad over his 7 starts, pitching fairly effectively throughout, limiting runs in most situations. 2 4-run games in his last 3, though. Maybe a little bit of normalization there, but even those are non-tragic where he's priced and given this pitching slate. The Royals bats good enough to definitely consider them despite that lower total. A lot of upside bats in that lineup. And then Lugo's kind of similar. You can get good depth out of Lugo. He's not a blow-him-away strikeout pitcher, but he's had a slight uptick in his last 3. 8 strikeouts last time out, 7 and 9 the 2 starts before that. Comes mostly via depth. He went 5 2/3 in the 8 strikeout game, 6 1/3, 6 innings in the 7 and the 9 strikeout game. But does have the upside to get there, does have the upside to give you 7 pretty solid innings. That said, the Mariners can easily turn around, put a few runs on his head too. The White Sox and the Dodgers rounding things out. Aaron Savali on the bump for the White Sox. Went 7 against the Blue Jays 2 starts ago, gave up 5 earned runs in that start though. Runs-wise, that wasn't pretty. That was his best depth start of the season, but he only struck out 2, walked 1 in that game. Just hasn't been sharp throughout most of this year. I don't think we need to tangle with it that much against the Dodgers, but I would leave him in. Again, I really don't think you're taking anybody out of crunches, lineup builds, whatever you want to call them. Dustin May rounding things out. Hasn't been pitching particularly deep in games, but did complete the 6th in 3 of his last 5 and a handful of other spots. So 6 is in the cards. Depends on how things are going. He didn't really hit a big strikeout total in most of his recent starts, but has a handful of higher strikeout games in the middle of the season. 9 against Cleveland, 8 apiece against Arizona and LA. So plenty of upside. Dustin May is very good when he's on and could find a good performance against this White Sox team. Probably will be popular. His bat's drawing that 5.70 implied total, obviously incredibly appealing. King of all trades is here. Anthony Taylor's here. Monty wants to pop fireworks early and win big before the weekend. Love it. Yeah, happy upcoming 4th. We'll be here tomorrow by at least planning to be. We'll see what happens, but planning to be here tomorrow for the 4th. Do a little pro-America show. Much is going on. We're all pro-America, right? Hopefully it's a good 4th out there. Hopefully nothing crazy happens. I know there's a lot of people with a lot of feelings going on, myself included. Some protests going on all around the country. Hopefully everything just stays sane and people can maybe take the weekend off from worrying so much. Enjoy some barbecues and stuff. Enjoy some baseball. Let's get into it before things get political. Check out the promo scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Promo code SARCASTIC. I almost said it again. Promo code SARCASTIC. That's what I get for using this as a promo code. Promo code SARCASTIC with a K in the middle of it where it doesn't belong. Gets you 50% off of a week or a month at rotoscouts. Go over to rotoscouts.com. Gain access behind the paywall. Typically, it's under $1 a day. This will cut that price in half on the weekly or the monthly. Quarterly plan doesn't have a promo running on it right now, but if you're about to buy one, let me know, and I will give you a promo reflective of this kind of a deal on it and or something thereabouts. That's a 3-month commitment, so maybe we don't cut the price entirely in half, but if you want it, hit me up. We'll talk about it. Discord link is down in the description for this video, so click on that. Join the community. You don't have to be a subscriber on Discord on the website. You don't have to be a subscriber here on YouTube to join the Discord. Pop in there, hang out with us, talk shop. I drop in all the updates throughout the day. People ask questions. I'm always happy to answer them going up to lock during the afternoon, whatever the case may be. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Hit me up over there too. It's quiet. Mostly just me sending out the link every day, but follow it anyway. The more people talk back, the more I'll respond. To all the gods here, what's going on, buddy? So let's get into this thing. So again, Robbie Ray, don't really trust him up at the top of the board, but there's not much to work with. So if you're just looking for, the ace caliber upside, Robbie Ray has that. And there's never denied that Robbie Ray is more than capable of going out there and pitching like one of the best pitchers in the league. He's also capable of giving you a pretty big basement a lot of time, though, too. A lot of walks, too much power allowed throughout his career. But when he's good, he is very, very good. I don't love tangling with that Arizona team, and it could go sideways with just a couple of runs at that price relative to all the other prices, especially on DK. On FanDuel, at least you've got Lugo and Clark Schmidt coming in the mid-9s. On DraftKings, you don't have anybody even at 9, let alone 10, let alone the 10 that Ray is at. So there's a big price disparity. Couple of runs, even just too many negatives on Robbie Ray on DK today. That could change the slate in an awful hurry. I think at worst, if you're building a bunch of lineups, like if you're starting a lineup pool now and you're just going to spend the next couple hours just building out lineups, throwing them into the blender and seeing what you get, it would definitely pay to run a few where you just take Robbie Ray out of the equation on DraftKings and let a lot of these guys pair up and just get a good mix of everything, because it's really seeming like that kind of a messy slate. Lugo is good enough to beat that Seattle team. 95.83 is a really good price on DraftKings. Would play him on FanDuel. Same thing with Schmitty. Low strikeout Blue Jays are problematic. They definitely have a little bit of power, but it is a weird version of their lineup. We're going to give it a look in just a sec. May on the board, and in a big way for me. 88 on FanDuel is a bargain. 78 even more so on DraftKings. That said, couple of runs bends his day because he's probably going to be pretty popular at those prices against that team. David Peterson, 99,000, 8,500, easy to play in that spot against the Brewers, but they're good enough to beat him. Chris Bassett against the Yanks, challenging spot, not a great pitcher, 87.76, nice discount on DraftKings if nothing else. This is the one that could get really interesting as a wild card. Thought is more than good enough to go out there and have a very strong start against that Giants team. At 67 on DraftKings, that could be a major source of upside. 82 on FanDuel, same thing. Obviously, he hasn't been great this year, but that is a really interesting inflection point for this slate. Less so for guys like Quintana, just because he's fairly low strikeout most of the time. Even if he gets through some clean innings, he just kind of books a score in the 13 to 18 point range, doesn't put a huge ceiling on anything. Logan Evans' clean innings are in the cards maybe against that Royals team, but outside of being cheap, I don't really love that spot. Ends on FanDuel, kind of a no. Jose Soriano mix and match, I think. 8,600 on FanDuel is a little bit bumpy as far as that price tag goes, but I would at least consider some shares for him. 74 on DraftKings, I think he's a lot more in the mix over on the DK slate. Cade Horton in the mix at 62. Elder, 65 in the mix. He's put up a couple good starts and a couple bad ones, but that's an Angels team with tons and tons of power, but also the ability to just leave guys on base and strike out like crazy. So definitely can roll some dice down there. Irvin is not all that compelling on that FanDuel slate. I know I said I wouldn't take too many guys out, but maybe from that first game, that Washington-Detroit one, maybe we're not considering those two guys all that much. And then Savali against the Dodgers is rough, but only costs 6,000. So as a dart on an ugly day, 6 innings of okay pitching out of Savali at the end of the night, maybe you could get there just enough to give you value, not in a ceiling kind of a way. And then Cantillo against the Cubs. I just don't love tangling with that Cubs team, but he's cheap too. So again, it's an ugly pitching slate. I think you kind of have to embrace the bottom of the board somewhat, embrace some of the just cheap dart throw options. Hope you get him in the right spot, pick the right guy at the low ownership and the cheap price. And you're just going to be riding on some ugly starts today. I really think that. I think everybody's giving up some runs here. I don't think we're getting a monster. Going to be a slate where people probably win with bats. Doug says this is a tough one. Made some lineups last night, and I hate them after seeing the data today. Had gobs of Soriano. Look, Soriano can be really good. He's good at suppressing power, which should be good to throw at that Braves team as far as taking some home run upside away from them a little bit. He does have a very solid fastball. He's capable of inducing whiffs. He's capable of finding more strikeouts. Just doesn't do it all that often. We'll get to it. I'm going to steal my own thunder. Tigers and the Nats. This first one up only on FanDuel. As we get started, hit the thumbs up down there. Subscribe to the channel. That does actually help feed the algorithm here on YouTube. If you do nothing else that I ask during the show, and there's promos and so on and so forth, as we mentioned, hit the subscribe button just to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything. Does actually help on this end. Dietrich Enns, as I mentioned, 34-year-old guy succeeding in AAA so far this year. He has over 62 innings, 14 starts, has a 2.89 ERA, a 3.68 xFIP, striking out 26.7% of AAA hitters, walking just 5.6%. Was moderately successful last year in the KBO for LG, pitched to a 4.19 ERA, a 4.11 xFIP, but had just a 22% strikeout rate, 7% walk rate, and that's KBO. 2 years before that, he was even lower strikeout in the Japan League in NPB. One bad year, one okay year as far as ERA, xFIP goes. But there's really not much to see here. He is left-handed, which has an impact up at the top, but both C.J. Abrams, James Wood, good enough to get through him. Nathaniel Lowe could find some power, and then once we get into the bullpen, we could see some upside out of Lowe. Depends on what lineup they roll out here as far as how appealing these bats are, and we've got it now, so I can actually talk about it. Looks like everybody up at the top is in this version of the lineup. We got the Tigers, too. Again, there is a little bit of weather just to keep an eye on in this one. And I only bring it up again because the Nats are a little bit sensitive about rain. They've got a little bit of a quick trigger when it comes to just wiping out a game. So just keep an eye on. Essentially the same lineup. Ahmed Rosario in the 3 spot is okay. For the third spot in the lineup with Modern, think about the 3 spot. It's all right. He's hitting 273, 11, 421, a 151 ISO. His creator runs 3% better than average. He's not a threatening bat, but he's low strikeout. Put the ball in play, find some success, cycle some runners around, keep the sequencing going. So he's fine for our purposes. Multi-position eligible at 2,700 does help pay for the other 3 guys around him. That's a very straightforward stack, but it only costs $34.25 a piece to attack Dietrich Enns with. Granted, you're throwing 3 lefties into the mix, so you can dip down. You could go Alex Call. Paul DeJong is on this team now. 63 plate appearances, 207, 270, 276 out of DeJong so far. Former power hitting, like mid-range quality shortstop. Last year, he did hit 24 home runs in 482 chances. Year before was pretty ugly. Going back in time, that was a short season. He had some better seasons back there. I'm sure you guys remember, just like I do. Brady House hasn't given us a ton over his 60 plate appearances, the rookie. 232, 267, 286. Supposed to be a better bat than this over time, but we're just throwing darts at 2,500 now if we're going down to that part of the board. Riley Adams has seen some success against mediocre lefties in the past. Does have an 11.6% barrel, 44.2% hard hit, 3 home runs in 83 plate appearances, most of which have come against lefties. There is a little bit of upside there at 23, but you don't need to play catcher on FanDuel, so why are we going to the bottom of the Nationals lineup for a mediocre other than a little bit of contact catcher? Jacob Young, same deal, 2,400, 9 stolen bases, 317 on bases, 77 WRC plus. Like, why are we fishing around down there? It's really light options down that way. It's all about the 2 guys up top. James Wood is a star, 22 homers, 12 steals, 387 on base, a 408 xWOBA on this ridiculous premium contact. And then CJ, 287, 356, 491, setting the table. Great for Wood right behind him. 136 WRC plus. He's also delivered 12 homers. He's stolen 17 bases. Tremendous pairing up at the top of the Nationals lineup. They're drawing a 4.20 implied total. They're very much on the board. It's just the options after Alex Call, unless you get a little something out of Paul DeJong reminiscent of where he was last year, shaky at best. Not a great Nats lineup. On the Tiger side, they're pulling nearly a 5 total, 4.90 as of last update. Going up against Jake Irvin, who's got a 4.73 ERA, a 4.61 xFIP, 16.8% strikeout rate on the season, sub 8% swinging strike rate. He's given up 13.5% barrels, 47.6% hard hits, and 90.7 miles an hour of exit velo, 4.49% home run rate so far. I think we can get into some Tigers power upside here on FanDuel. Really don't like any Jake Irvin, 77. You could throw that dart a couple times on just this funky pitching slate, but out of all the guys on the FanDuel board, he's one of the less likely to give you any sort of success. Even a day where he gives you 6 clean innings and maybe finds his way to a quality start, you're still not talking about many strikeouts along the way there. So really, really challenged to find any quality in Jake Irvin. Colt Keith up at the top of the board, 2,600, first and second base eligible is nice. 258, 339, 418 on the season, creating runs 15% better than average. Definitely in the mix. If nothing else, he's a good table setter for the bats that you want to get to behind him. And we're short one of the big bats that we typically have in this lineup. So I think Colt Keith is the natural replacement there. You get a lefty, you get a guy with the ability to hit home runs. He's got 6 on the season, but he's got a 10.7% barrel, 42.9% hard hits this year, sub 20% strikeout, nearly an 11% walk. There's a lot of positives going on with Colt Keith, and he's got even better pedigree as coming up through the minors as a prospect than what he's put up so far in the show. So he's an interesting bat, and he's not at all expensive at 2,600 to start things off. Gleyber Torres, all-star. Kind of wish he was still on the Yankees. As I said, day one of this season. 9 home runs on the year, 279, 383, 428. Another guy just setting the table great up at the top of this lineup, a 134 WRC plus. Squaring the ball up, striking out just 12.8%, walking 13.7%. Monster season so far from Gleyber. Not expensive at 31 at second base. Wensil Perez, the switch hitter, 6 home runs on the year, a pretty solid slash line, over 108 plate appearances. That's decent power output, a 293 ISO, finding some extra base hits. Not a bad bat to throw into the mix, 14.5%. And again, no Kerry Carpenter, so you're looking around for another quality bat. Hitting third at 3,100, that's an easy bat to stick into the outfield. It's got a 343 xWOB under the covers, a 146 WRC plus in the small sample. We've seen him go on little tears in the past. Very playable bat. Riley Green's the most appealing bat on the team, 3,600. He's got an 11.77 in the home run model today. He's at 21 this year, 256 ISO, 151 WRC plus. Riley Green is just very, very good. And honestly, probably a couple $100 short for considering the matchup against Jake Irvin, how good he looks here. I like that spot quite a bit. Spencer Torkelson at first base, probably move my Colt Keith shares over to second base most of the time when I'm playing him. You've also got the util spot, of course, on FanDuel, but love the Colt Keith or the Torkelson option being 3,300. He's at 18 home runs this year, carrying a 251 ISO, a 127 WRC plus, also above the magic number in the home run model, 13.6% barrels. You can quibble with some zeros that he'll give you from time to time. He still strikes out a little bit too much, but he's drawn a lot of walks this season. He's not consistent, probably never will be, but he's got a ton of power. Zach McKinstry, the production comes and goes, but a 130 WRC plus for the full season, 290, 361, 456. What he's not is a tremendous power bat, just to put the ball in play kind of a hitter. He's another guy who could easily be hitting like third in that mix up there, but they've got a lot of that up there. But a playable piece across 4 positions on FanDuel for only 28. If you're not going Colt Keith, save a couple bucks at second base and go McKinstry. It's an equal option. It's definitely a slightly different kind of a hitter, but as productive a bat to get to. Dylan Dingler has a little bit of pop in that bat, 8.3% barrels and 42.9% hard hits. Again, we don't need catcher on FanDuel, but he's a little bit more appealing than dropping down to Riley Adams at the bottom of the Nats lineup here, I think. There's just more inherent upside from going to the Tigers. They're bigger total, rising tide effect from the lineup. Parker Meadows is interesting, hiding down there at 2,600. A pretty bad 89 plate appearances so far, but we know he's got pop from the left side. We know he can steal a base if he happens to get on. Not doing many of those things at all. Just 2 home runs, 2 steals, 270 on base and a 66 WRC plus, but he's in play at that price. If I'm building a bunch of Tiger stacks, which I think I will be, I will get some Parker Meadows shares distributed among them. And then Javi Baez at 2,800, 9 home runs, carrying a 284, 322, 457 slash line, a 119 WRC plus. Never saw it coming. As I think it was XX Cubs was saying in Discord yesterday, what year is it? Just in relation to Javi Baez, what year is it? A lot of production this year. Playable at worst, not expensive. 3 positions. Tigers bats, Nationals bats. Either pitcher's a wild card at best on that FanDuel slate. They're not expensive. You could throw the darts, but whoops. There's not a lot to love about either guy. Still no Yankees lineup. Blue Jays lineup's in. So we get Nathan Lukes in the leadoff spot. Springer 2, Vladdy, Barger. It's a capable enough team. You've gotten a lot out of Alejandro Kirk this year. Ernie Clement's just been on a tear for hitting for average and run creation. Bottom 3 get a little bit light around Will Wagner, Davis Schneider, and Leo Jimenez. You can mix and match your way through some Schneider shares. He's got 3 home runs, a 133 WRC plus over 71 plate appearances, a little bit of ability to put bat on ball. But it does thin out down there. It is a little bit of a top-heavy team. No Bo Bichette up at the top of the lineup today. Luke's checks in at 260, 360, 360. That on base makes him a pretty good table setter, a pretty decent option for the leadoff role. But it's obviously a diminishment to the spot overall. They're going up against Clark Schmidt, who comes in 13 starts, 75 and 2/3, carrying a 23.9% strikeout rate, walking a few too many at 9.3. It's not tragic, but it's definitely a couple points higher than you'd like it. Does have an 11.9% swinging strike rate, though. Pretty tremendous number there. Just a 1.06 whip, despite that 9.3% walk. 3.09 ERA, but a 4.17 xFIP. Truth is probably somewhere in between with Schmitty. Does give up a lot of fly ball trajectory, 19.4 degree average launch, but not a lot of premium contact. Just 6% of those are barrels. 35% hard hits, 87.8 miles an hour of exit velo. Entirely manageable and makes it entirely believable to be around a 2.5% home run rate. Solid, not spectacular, marked by stuff plus. It's who Schmitty is. It's a 3-starter. It's a little bit above average kind of a starter. But good enough to beat this team. The issue becomes, as always with the Blue Jays, that low strikeout rate. This version of the lineup, 15.9%. Now, granted, that's helped by that 0 over 2 plate appearances for Mr. Jimenez down there, so we'll take that out of the mix. Puts him at 17.9. Not an easy team to find Ks against. Schmitty's good enough to find a few, but it's probably a day where if he goes 6, you're coming away with 5 strikeouts, if that. And they could put a few runs. They're decent enough at sequencing. They can definitely draw some walks. You can see the top 3 guys in the lineup, double-digit walk rates. Another couple guys in shorter samples, also double-digit walk rates down toward the bottom. So if you're putting the ball in play, you're sequencing, you're putting extra guys on base, just keeping pressure on Clark Schmidt here, could be a shorter day than we would want, depending on how things are going in the 5th, 6th inning. With Boone, you never know. He did let Will Warren get out to 99 pitches before he yanked him yesterday, despite the downside. A lot of playability in Schmitty at 89, 96. Very much on the board. But Blue Jays bats back the other way are probably still worth it here. Obviously, you gear everything around Vladdy Guerrero at 55-34. He's just way too cheap. Dozen home runs on the season, a 415 xWOBA, 134 WRC plus, mashing baseballs as always. Again, the big turnaround for Vladdy. Not that these numbers are bad in a vacuum, but they're low for him. The big monster second half is lurking here with Vladdy. George Springer putting great bat on ball all year. 13 home runs, 10 stolen bases, a 213 ISO, 141 WRC plus. You just play these two guys, and I would actually add Addison Barger to the you just play him right now mix. He's hitting the ball incredibly hard all season, kind of fulfilling his potential. 10 home runs on the year and 229 chances. So you've got third base covered, couple outfield options up here. Luke's is not a high priority, but just given the direct correlated scoring, you would go there. That's already got me for that top 4 at just $43.50 a piece. And I can throw Alejandro Kirk into the mix and not change that price. I can use Ernie Clement in there at the middle infield and bring it down to $41.60 a piece. If you're going even further down the ladder and including some of these guys, obviously you can average that down even further. So the Blue Jays are an interesting enough value team to move some of these pieces around, given that one of their better options is a catcher who is at a very fair price, given his talent. One of their options in the leadoff role is pretty damn cheap in the outfield and capable enough to do what we need him to do. And then you've just got a lot of thunder right here. And Barger's not expensive. So it's a good enough team to build with. Not a high priority team, but they're probably going to be lower owned again. They were very low on when they went off last night. On the Yankees side, going up against Bassett, 76.87 for Chris Bassett. Checks in with a 4.29 ERA, but a 3.61 xFIP, typical of who Chris Bassett is. 22.6% strikeout, just a 6.1% walk, 9.9% swinging, and 26.6% CSW. There's nothing special there, but he's okay. He's a serviceable 3-4 type guy. Last year, 22.2% strikeouts, had a 9.2% walk, 4.16 ERA, a 4.28 xFIP. Again, third, fourth type starter. Year before, 22.5% strikeouts over 200 innings and 33 starts. Was giving you a lot more depth that season. He's definitely capable of beating this Yankees team, finding a 1-4 type strikeout day against a team that checks in at 23.7 for this projected lineup and will be around that average no matter who comes into the lineup. A little bit of variability lately for the Yanks. They got a lot of guys, a lot of mouths to feed. But this is a somewhat likely version of the lineup, I would say. There's tons and tons of playability with the power that the Yankees have on any given slate, with the bats that are just in that lineup. And I'm talking about guys like Paul Goldschmidt, Cody Bellinger, guys who are just reliable bats over time. Used to be stars, maybe you could say, with especially we're around Goldie, just because he's kind of aged out now. And he's had a pretty rough month to kind of normalize his numbers, but still very playable, especially where he's priced in. That's why the Yankees are typically always going to look fairly good at the top of the stacks board. Yes, I'm not wearing my Yankees hat as I wear this, but I am wearing a Yankees shirt. But it's got nothing to do with it. It's not me in there artificially influencing things. This is just how this lineup lands. You've got a capable Ben Rice up at the top of the projected lineup. He's hit 14 home runs, getting on at a 327 clip. I don't know that we want to keep dabbling with him in the leadoff role all that much longer. He's capable of drawing a walk, though. He sees a decent number of pitches because he's not a high strikeout player, puts great bat on ball. Inoffensively priced, now has catcher eligibility on DraftKings. He is 44 on DK, but given that catcher eligibility, that smooths out that price a little bit. 32, the catcher eligibility doesn't matter at all on FanDuel, but there he is. He's fairly priced. 65-48 for Judge is fine. 31 home runs on the season. Rocked a couple pitches yesterday. Monster barrels, hard hits. Everything you could possibly want in a baseball player. Cody Bellinger, 45-33. 12 home runs on the season for him. He's been hitting the ball fairly consistently hard all season, a 190 ISO. Nice return to form for power and premium contact from Bellinger this year, as we've talked about a few times, and it hasn't cost him anything. He's improved his strikeout rate. He's improved his walk rate. Dynamite year so far from Cody. Giancarlo Stanton hit his first home run of the season last night. Absolute bomb. 3.4% barrels, 55.2% hard hits. It was just a matter of time. The swing looked good. The swing speed looked good, or as good as his swing, his herky-jerky, just whip the bat around faster than anybody in the entire league swing. It looked right. He just wasn't finding success. Now that he's got one in the seats, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him go on a tear of just making contact. And once he makes contact regularly, the ball just travels. So you absolutely want to play a still cheap Giancarlo Stanton at 35-28 if you're going to the Yanks. Jazzy Chisholm at 5,038 on FanDuel. A lot of flexibility on FanDuel, second base, third base. Third base only on DraftKings. Puts him very much in play. He's easy to use at that position. No downgrade positionally there. But if I could put him at second and get another big bat at third, I will do that quite frequently. So I love having the flex on him on FanDuel. Goldie at 43-27. Again, even with the decline, still at 286, 347, 431 for the year, or 118 WRC plus. More than capable, still low strikeout, medium walk rate, good contact. Justin Dominguez at 36-28 has gotten quite cheap for a kid who's got an 8.5% barrel, 50% hard hit. Still carrying a 106 WRC plus. He's stolen 12 bases. Just not finding a ton of success as far as the power output goes. The extra base hits, the home runs, given that premium contact, they should come. Just a 130 ISO in that home run total is kind of disappointing given the contact. Anthony Volpe has left more than a village. He's left a small city on the bases this year. 9 home runs. Can square the ball up, but doesn't do so frequently. He's up to 24.6% strikeouts now. The walks are in decline at 9.8. Still a good walk rate overall, but it's coming back down, and we don't want to see that. Kind of a key attribute for him. So needs to find it again. Needs to drive the ball more consistently, come through with guys on base. That's just happenstance. That's not something he can necessarily control as far as who's on ahead of him. But it's not been a great season from Volpe at 224, 304, 403. Kind of making Cashman eat his words. DJ LeMahieu at the bottom of the lineup, 3,000, 2,300. Came through with a few more hits yesterday. 51.1% hard hit, 254, 333, 331. Looking a lot like DJ LeMahieu out there. Very cheap. Easy to wrap around from the bottom of the lineup at second base, 3,000 on DraftKings. Multi-position on FanDuel at 2,300. DJ is very easy to use. One of the reasons I would maybe just play Jazz at third on FanDuel is if that lineup is including DJ at second, because I can wrap DJ back around to the top, second base there, get Judge, one of Belly or Stanton in there, and Jazz. I like the way that lineup stacks up on FanDuel. In fact, I guarantee you I will have at least a couple versions of this combination of 1 or 9, 2. Probably take Stanton because of how cheap he is, and then Jazz at third. That's a 34-25 average for those 4 hitters. And I get Stanton, Jazz, Judge, and then from the bottom, a mixer of DJ LeMahieu. I will definitely build that stack. But the Yankees overall are fairly cheap for the upside. Both pitchers are very much on the board. This is a 4 corners game for sure. It probably most likely realistically goes Yankees bats, Clark Schmidt, Chris Bassett, Blue Jays bats. But that could get jumbled in an awful hurry. It wouldn't surprise me if the Blue Jays had another decent day. I don't know if they go up to 8-9 run type threshold, but 5-6 wouldn't shock me at all. Ricky Lee really likes the AL's best team, the Vlad Barger Kirk Deadly Trio. DJ Josh Speed is calling the Colt Keith home run. I made Colt Keith the home run pick from the Tigers. Not the home run pick of the day overall, but the pick from the Tigers. I do the team-by-team pick on the site, and then I have the overall home run pick of the day that I'm struggling to remember who I picked. Oh, I remember. Late night hammer spot. I went to a low-owned guy on a popular team. New York Mets facing Jose Quintana. Milwaukee Brewers going up against David Peterson. A little bit of weather to watch in this one. Still no Brewers lineup in. And nothing to see there. Sub 4 implied total for the Brewers. They're a not exciting DFS team, but there is upside on any given slate. Got a couple decent righty power bats in the lineup. Jackson Churio, 4,900, 3,600. FanDuel being stubborn about that price. Now the Yankees lineup just dropped. They did that to us yesterday, too. Grisham lead off. Ben Rice 2, Judge to the 3 spot, which I hate when they do that. Swing back real quick. So Grisham up at the top of the Yankees lineup has been giving you a little bit more on base than Ben Rice has. Little bit of power this year, 15 home runs on the board at 220 ISO, mashing baseballs, 14% barrel rate. Starting to show cracks around the edges a little bit, just like Ben Rice is, but very playable up there. You don't have Paul Goldschmidt. You do have Ozzy Peraza down the bottom of the lineup. You don't have DJ LeMahieu. Ozzy he gives you the same thing price and positional fit wise, but he's not as good a bat as DJ is. So that's a little disappointing down there. Loses what I was just talking about. They're just as strong through the middle. You've got Austin Wells inserted into the lineup, catching 11 home runs on the season for Wellesley. That bolsters the bottom of the lineup in terms of the power expectations. Big left-handed bat down there, not expensive at all. 3,800, that's an interesting enough one-off if you're just looking to grab a cheap catcher in a DraftKings lineup where you have to play the position. I wish he was hitting a little bit higher up in the lineup, and you've got a more expensive Ben Rice who's doing that. But Wellesley will be the dramatically lower owned of the two. So a little bit different as far as the Yanks go. Still no Brewers. But as I was saying, a few interesting righties in the mix here. David Peterson's been really good at keeping the ball down this season, though. Just a 4.9 degree average launch, 6% barrel allowed. We don't really care as much about the hard hits, the exit velo when it's on that kind of trajectory as usual. Just a 1.49% home run rate allowed. 3.30 ERA and a 3.56 xFIP. He's inducing a 10.2% swinging, but he's walking a few too many and not finishing hitters off at 20.6%. 19.8 last year, but 26% 2 years ago in 111 innings, 21 starts. So there are more strikeouts in the arm, but he's just pitching a little bit differently these days. He was walking more hitters that year. He was finding more swinging strikes. It's been a little bit reduced in exchange maybe for a couple of those walks coming off the board, but he's not finding the Ks as much. It's the one thing that's made him a little bit less sneaky usable on a lot of these slates. But on today's at 85 at 9,000, he's at least an established option to go to that does have a little bit of strikeout pedigree and is showing nearly 20.6% this year, which is higher than a lot of the options we've got to work with, like Jose Quintana on the other side at 15.9% against 10.5% walks. So there's a lot of viability in Peterson. Between the two, I'd rather throw David Peterson at this Brewers team than Jose Quintana at this Mets team. Quintana's low strikeout, too many guys on base. He does have a 3.30 ERA because he's just one of these crafty lefties who can pitch his way out of trouble sometimes, and he's gotten away with some bad performances. 4.83 xFIP kind of tells you that story. That xFIP is a run and a half higher than his ERA. 85 rating by Stuff Plus. It's not like he gives up a ton of premium contact, but what contact he does allow comes on a fly ball trajectory, 13.8 degree average launch. So you can hit home runs against him, even though he hasn't been allowing too many so far this year. It's been some good, some bad in years past. 3.75 ERA with a 4.44 xFIP last year. A few more strikeouts, fewer walks, more home runs allowed, but not bad. Year before that was good with limiting home runs over a half of a season. Had a decent ERA, but again, a xFIP that was a full run higher. Similarly low strikeout. You got to go back a ways. 2022 was the last time he was at 20% strikeouts. Not a bad year that year, over 165 and 2/3. But that was probably the end of his higher quality years. Mets are a low strikeout bunch. A lot of hard-hitting bats in that lineup. Some star caliber players in that lineup. I think we just kind of lean Mets bats here at 4.72 implied runs. But Quintana at 7,200 is in your SP2 mix on DraftKings. You could get 5-6 clean innings out of him. 3 to 4 strikeouts on a weird day maybe makes it work. 81 on FanDuel in the mix. Again, on a day where we're really not rushing to take guys out. 5 2/3 of 4-run ball last time against Colorado. 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. That was in a game in Milwaukee, which he probably should have given us a better performance. But the start before that at Minnesota, 1 strikeout, 4 walks. I mentioned this start earlier. Just 3 hits allowed, no runs. That kind of start could easily be in the cards. Is kind of what I'm talking about. Maybe it's not 4 strikeouts and 1 walk. Maybe it's 3 strikeouts and 2 walks, but no runs, 5 hits over 6 innings. It wouldn't shock anybody if Jose Quintana had that kind of a day today, or it shouldn't anyway. So he's on the board, but he's not appealing. He's not a desirable option, and we would much rather have Mets against. If you're working with the Brewers, still not here. I was hoping it would be. If Frelick is leading off, 4,300, 3,200 is an inoffensive price, even in a lefty-lefty. I think you can go there and include him as a correlated scoring option. You get a little stolen base bonus out of him. Churio would be a priority, even with his mediocre season. The 285 on base is glaring. It's cutting into his stolen base upside, his run creation upside, just a 101 WRC plus. Has hit 14 home runs, carrying a 192 ISO. It's not been bad in the power department, but I'll call your attention to the fact that it's coming on just 6.9% barrels and 36.8% hard hits, which is in no way reflective of who this kid was in the minors and what he's supposed to be. So there's a little bit of lingering concern about this sophomore slump with Jackson Churio. Christian Yelich, monster spot. 48.9% barrel, 7.8% hard hit. Other way around. That would be absurd. 17 home runs, 12 stolen bases, a 337 on base. Creator runs 22% better than average. Priority bat in this lineup. And then you get to William Contreras, who's not having a good year. Does have some thump historically from the right side. He'd be a priority at 43 on DraftKings, filling out the catcher role. At 28 on FanDuel, where you do have Rhys Hoskins to use at first base, but that could be a back and forth situation pretty easily given the lineup position advantage that Contreras has. Isaac Collins in the mix for not much better than average production. 268, 373, 421, has created runs 27% better than average. But DFS wise, what has he really given us? 5 home runs, 8 steals, 28 runs scored, 20 RBIs. There's not a lot of counting stats there. There's not a lot of DFS production outside of the oddball base hits. Rhys has tons of power still, 10.8% barrels and 45.7% hard hits. It's resulted in a dozen home runs, a 182 ISO. You can definitely still go to Rhys Hoskins, and people don't seem to like to. So low owned, 4,100, 3,000 on FanDuel. You can take some shots. Bryce 2 ranked 46-31, probably going to be down here against the lefty. Decent slash line, 17 steals, solid correlated scoring option. That's about all he's going to be in this spot. Caleb Durbin and Joey Ortiz, mix and match plays at the absolute best. Durbin's been the better of the two this year, but only a 99 WRC plus for him. And then Ortiz mired at a 63 WRC plus, 6 homers, 9 steals out of him. On the Mets side, you got Starling Marte in the leadoff role. Not a bad option up there, setting the table for the guys, the 3 stars that follow. 337 on base out of Marte this year. He's capable of stealing a bag. He's only got 4 on the year. He's only hit 4 home runs in 176 chances. Missed some time out there. Hasn't been overly productive, but still carrying a 105 WRC plus. Doesn't really strike out. Draws a medium walk rate. There's a lot to like at 37, 26 when you can just feed him directly into those guys and then pick another cheap guy from below that stretch. Right there, that's a 5,050 average, so you do need to bring it down. Quickest path to that is just grab Luis Torrens at catcher. 2,500. That cuts 40 down to 45, 40. Still a little bit pricey, but you're attacking Jose Quintana with 3 of the better bats to do that with in all of baseball. and you're getting a directly correlated scoring option and a cheap catcher in the mix. So it's well worth doing. Francisco Lindor comes in with 17 homers, 13 stolen bases, having another tremendous year. Just looks a lot like Frankie Lindor. Juan Soto at 58.41 is very affordable. He's up to 20 home runs, 10 steals, carrying a 395 on base, a 152 WRC plus, a 455 xWOBA that tells us that everything's just fine. Pete Alonso, a lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits, 18 homers, solid slash line out of Alonso. He started the season absolutely on fire. He's cooled somewhat in the front end of the triple slash, but it's still a fantastic year from Pete. 244 ISO. Wouldn't surprise me to see him go on another ridiculous tear soon, too, given that premium contact. Brendan Nimmo makes tons of great contact from the left side. 42-31 against the soft-tossing lefty like Quintana. No worries there. 16 home runs on the season. We get him against some bullpen arms, too. Love the upside. Mark Vientos, 31-25. Given all the power we saw from him last year, a 45.6% hard hit rate in an otherwise poor 224 plate appearances so far. I'll take my upside at a cheap price with nobody else going there. Definitely an interesting bat in the mix in this game. Brett Baty, another guy who hits the ball hard. Another lefty bat late in the lineup, 36-26 at second base. Not a bad price. He's hit 8 home runs. He has a 177 ISO. Could definitely find way more success given the way he's hitting the ball. So just needs those to find the right spots on the field, get over the wall and what have you. And we can see a much better second half out of Brett Baty than first half. Tyrone Taylor, not really doing much in a Mets uniform. 246 pretty empty plate appearances, 9 stolen bases, but just a 275 on base, only 2 home runs, not really hitting the ball with much authority. Mix and match player at the bottom. Mets bats, David Peterson. Brewers bats, Jose Quintana. But I wouldn't quibble with you if you wanted to move Quintana up that list, above the Brewers bats anyway. Angels lineup is in. Braves has been in for a while. Cubs fan is asking, there was no Stanton in that lineup either, huh? I didn't even clock that when we were looking at the Yankees lineup. Yeah, no Stanton in there either. That's definitely a ding for the overall upside. You still got some very good bats going down that lineup. But yeah, that's we got Grisham instead of Stanton. Didn't even clock that when I went through it. Notice Goldie wasn't in there. Appreciate the note there, Ricky. Cubs asking what's up with the crowns next to people's names. I can't see those. I guess it's on YouTube. Started a few weeks ago based on the number of posts or something. It's a comment on the stream ranking. Larry's got a number. Power saying MLB is scapegoating Luis Ortiz like the NBA did Malik Beasley and the NFL did Calvin Ridley. Did the NBA scapegoat Malik Beasley or did he just do wrong? I don't know. I don't know the details. What's his face from was it from the Raptors, right? What the hell was that guy's name? He got busted. You know what I'm talking about. It's going to happen more and more. Some of these like lower end mid-range type players, and it's not necessarily about like, you know, oh, they're making millions of dollars, blah, 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 but they've got family members, friends out there. Very easy to just throw a pitch in the dirt and change the outcome. Miss a free throw, or take a lot more in Beasley's case. Anyway, Angels 4-1-2 implied total. Let's see. Chad Stevens apparently in the lineup. Doesn't look like he's on either site down toward the bottom there. So a little bit of a hole in the lineup DFS wise, assuming he doesn't get added. Not something that'll impact the team, though. Obviously, he'll be there to help turn the lineup over. You've got a lot of power, as usual, showing for the Angels. Zach Neto in the top spot, pulling an 8.89. Mike Trout above the magic number. Both Taylor Ward and Joe Adell just short of the magic number in the mid-9s, upper 9s in the next 2 spots. Logan O'Hoppe a few spots down at 8.88. Notably, Jorge Soler slipping 6.29 coming off of a couple of fresh updates the last few days. Just 9 home runs on the season, just a 156 ISO, making okay contact, but not good enough contact for him, and really struggling this year. It's starting to show in the projections finally. So little impact there for Soler. He's very, very cheap. What these Angels do push in Bryce Elder's direction is a little bit of a strikeout bonus potential. There are a lot of Ks there. If Elder can manage to pitch through them clean as far as allowing barrels, allowing premium contact, which is an issue for him, then there's maybe some upside. Maybe he finds a couple bonus strikeouts and pays off a pretty weak salary at 65, at 74 across sites. There's enough there. 5.82 ERA, but a 3.89 xFIP I think is very noteworthy when we're talking about a pitcher who's this cheap. 19% strikeouts against 8% walks. Neither of those numbers is incredibly appealing, but it's not tragic either. A 1.47 whip is part of the problem as far as the xFIP goes. Just too many guys on base. 7.6% swinging strike rate at 26.2% CSW. There's just not enough strikes being thrown overall. And you can see all the barrels, all the hard hits, and the exit velo he's allowed. It's amounted to a 4.67% home run rate, but that comes against just 6.9 degrees of average launch. So what that is quite a few mistakes that have traveled over the wall, but on average, he is keeping the ball down, and he's done that in years past. Last year in 49 2/3, just an 8.1 degree average launch, did allow some home runs. 8.5 the year before that in a full season, 31 starts, 174 2/3, and a within expectation 2.60% home run rate. Similar strikeout and walk numbers each of those years. Did crack 20% in the small sample last year. Was at 20.7 in 9 starts back in 2022 with similar home run numbers and ability to limit average launch. So if he can take that one attribute away just by keeping the ball down a little bit, keep these guys off the home run board, then maybe we find a little bit of a path to some good innings. But it's going to come down to not making that critical mistake against the lineup that's very, very good at capitalizing on that. Last time out, he got obliterated. Faced the Phillies, gave up 9 earned runs, 10 runs total on 8 hits, went just 2 innings, 19 hitters, struck out 2, walked 4, allowed 3 home runs. Allowed a home run in each of his last 4 starts, including that 3 home run game. The other 3 were single home run games. 5 1/3 against Miami. He gave up 5 earned runs on 10 hits the start before the Phillies game. 4 strikeouts and a walk, gave up a homer. 3 1/3 against Colorado in Atlanta. 3 1/3, 4 earned runs on 7 hits, struck out 2, walked 3, gave up a home run. Those 3 starts were coming off of an 8-inning gem against the Giants in San Francisco, in which he struck out 12. Monster start, outlier game. No walks, gave up a home run. That was the only run he allowed, 3 hits. He was excellent that time out. Had a few good 6-inning starts earlier in the season too. So very capable of giving us a quality 6 here against this Angels team. Just needs to find form. Like, he doesn't even have to have a crazy 12 strikeout outlier. Just give me the guy who was getting through 6 and striking out 5 or 6 hitters along the way. And I'm happy with that at these prices. So more than enough reason to consider some Bryce Elder. He's got the Angels at a 4.12 implied total against. Definitely enough upside at the price, especially on DK at 65. But on FanDuel, I'll take a few shots. Quality start is in the mix for Bryce Elder here. A lot of upside for your win bonus as well. Jose Soriano going against the Braves at 74.86. He's carrying a 20.1% strikeout rate, but nearly an 11% walk. 3.99 ERA and a 3.47 xFIP, though. He's another guy, extreme launch angle specialist, negative 3.6 degree average, sub 1% home run rate. So he's very, very good at taking the home run ball away. You do have a little bit of power still showing for Ronald Acuna, Matty Olson. Austin Riley, though, checked down a little bit. Marcell Ozuna checked even further down the board. Sean Murphy down here at 8.40. You've got some home run upside showing for the Braves, but it's not as prevalent as it typically would be on those hitters. Jose Soriano is having an impact. He's given up some runs through the season. You can definitely get him for hard hits and exit velo, but it's going to be on that low trajectory. So the Braves are going to need to find some sequencing here. It's not necessarily an ideal spot for the Braves to come through with what they typically do well. They do hit the ball extremely hard when they catch it. So if they're hitting a few, hard hit singles, balls through the infield, somebody comes through with a clutch double rather than a home run, you can get there anyway. But it has an impact on DFS scoring. That Aaron Judge ball that I mentioned that went for a double off the top of the wall, that gets over the wall, you get a couple more points out of it. It makes a difference. I think on a slate like this, probably worth playing some Braves. They're coming in nearly a 5 implied total.
They've got all that upside from stars like Ronald Acuna, all the power of Matt Olson. He's coming off a big game. Obviously excited to get over to my team and the Dynasty League. Starts next week for us. Just knock on wood, he stays healthy. But rocking the ball all season long, 16.5% barrels, 54.2% hard hits. Dynamite follow-up to Acuna when he's getting on base at a 465 clip. 9 home runs out of him already, a 252 ISO. Monster pairing up top. I'm still a full faith believer in Austin Riley. The Church of Austin Riley is very much open over here. 14% barrels, 51% hard hits, dozen home runs on the season. Just a 153 ISO. Weird match of home run output and ISO against that kind of contact and Riley's career history. I like a monster second half coming from Austin Riley. We'll see what we get out of Ozuna. Playing hurt, 11 home runs on the year. As I keep on saying, now that he's so cheap, I just want to be early on the spot. I just want to be there on the days that he's going to have the big days, and I'll take that discount for a player as good as Marcell Ozuna when he's 100%. Jerkson Profar, I'm less interested in than an injured Marcell Ozuna. Profar doesn't hit the ball particularly hard. He had an okay season last year. Most of it probably came from PEDs. Does have a home run on the board in 20 plate appearances this year, 263, 300, 421. Served his time. Got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's very cheap. He can get involved, but a lower-end player than the top end of this lineup. Underperforming Ozzy Albies, Michael Harris. The back and forth between Michael Harris shares and Jerkson Profar shares, I think, is a worthwhile and interesting debate. Harris underperforming his talent this season easily. It's easily visible in the 217, 242, 328 slash line. He's just been bad cover to cover so far, but he's coming off of a couple very strong seasons. He's coming up off of years with very visible positive attributes. He's still not high strikeout and walk are right in line with expectations. So I continue to believe that it's something that could just turn on a dime, given some of what he's doing. I'm not a full faith believer in Michael Harris anymore. Same thing with Ozzy Albies, but I'll continue to work them into Brave stacks and hope for the best. Hope for a return to form from two formerly pretty good players. As always, Nick Allen here for defense. If you're going to the Angels lineup, Neto's a priority. 5,000, 3,200 for a shortstop with 12 home runs, 13 steals, and just 275 chances. Hitting ahead of bats like Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, Joe Adell, whatever's left of Jorge Soler. I'll take a guy who can give me some correlated scoring upside, but also has plenty of independent upside on his own. Nolan Shanuel at 39-31 is not that. He very much needs help from his friends, but he's got a few very big friends to back him up in a fight here. Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, monster power upside out of those two. 13 homers on the board for the superstar, 20 home runs on the board for Taylor Ward. Joe Adell closing in on Taylor Ward for the team lead with 18 now, 251 ISO. Had a good game yesterday. He doubled and drove in 2 runs in the first inning, and then I think that was about it. Angels didn't do much when they looked pretty good yesterday. They don't look as good today as they did against Dieter Fuentes yesterday, so this is probably the day where they have the monster. They're very much in play. Bottom of the lineup is still fairly strong with Soler. He's in the mix for me. 31-28 is just cheap. Like I was saying before, I'll still ride with hoping for the best. Given in a vacuum, not good for him, but good in a vacuum, barrel and hard hit rate. You could still find some home run power. Ohapi's interesting at 36, given all that premium contact where you need to play catchers. Solid home run rating, 17 on the season and a 220 ISO. Renifo's just been kind of bad this season. You can mix and match your way to some shares down lineup as you need. I guess I got to go Braves bats. Actually, I don't know. I think it might be a little deceptive given that run total, but Soriano's ability to keep the ball in the yard. It's having an impact. It's even deceptive in the home run model today. I'm going to say cheap Bryce Elder. Cheap Soriano on DraftKings. Braves bats. Angels bats. Soriano on FanDuel. I think him on FanDuel is the worst position in this game, I think, at 86. Just a little expensive for what he's likely to give you here. But I think the pitching is at least interesting, especially on DK, with how cheap it is. Wouldn't surprise me at all if either of these offenses went off against either of these pitchers. But would also be equally unsurprising if either of these pitchers had an effective enough DFS day for those prices. Damn it. Guards and the Cubs. No lineups here. 8 o'clock game. Joey Cantillo on the mound for the Guardians. Cade Horton on the mound for the Cubbies. Horton, not exactly the gem that they've wanted when they brought him up. High-end prospect for them. Delivering just a 4.80 ERA, a 4.58 xFIP, just 16.5% strikeouts over his first 45 innings in the show, allowing a 12.1% barrel, 89.4 miles an hour of exit velo, just a handful of home runs because he has kept the ball down somewhat effectively. 9.7 degree average launch is not problematic, but there's been too many guys on base. Not via the walk, just a 7% walk rate against an 11.4% swinging strike rate. So guys are just finding some success against him. A growing pitcher, some mistakes get put into play, end up as big base hits against. You can see the path for how he's not succeeding. But as far as DFS upside, with that lack of strikeouts, there's not a ton to see here. He was a better strikeout pitcher throughout his stops in the minor leagues, upper 20% strikeout rate all along the way. So he's striking out about half as many as he typically was in the minors now that he's in the show. That's the one, real quality hiccup that we're seeing. He's very cheap, 62.73. There are some strikeouts in the Guardians lineup. There are also some very, very good low strikeout hitters that are the more likely guys in this lineup to get him already. So I don't love that. What I was looking up was, what is the BABIP allowed? Hitters are pulling it in the show so far. A 315 BABIP against him. There's your problem. Probably just needs a little bit more polish. Let him figure it out, though. I think he's in the mix. Again, we're not taking really anybody off the slate, especially on DK at 62. At 73 on FanDuel, he's only booked a quality start once this season. He's only completed the 6th once this season. 2 earned runs in that game. That was against Colorado in a home game in Chicago. Struck out 6, give up a homer, 2 earned runs. Did pitch into the 6th in 3 other games. Last 2 times out, 4 innings last time, 7 earned runs at Houston. Struck out 2, walked 4, 2 home runs allowed. 4 2/3 against Seattle in Chicago. 3 earned runs, 6 runs overall on 7 hits, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. Been a little bit rough in recent form. And again, just that lack of the 6th inning gives you a little bit of pause even at 7,300. He's capable of getting there if all goes to plan. The Guardians come in with just a 4 implied total. So I think there's enough meat on the bone that you can throw the dart, but he's a little bit less likely on FanDuel, I think, than compares as he looks on DraftKings. Joey Cantillo has been pitching in a mostly bulk relief role. 3 innings last time out against the Dodgers. He allowed 1 earned on 2 hits to 11 hitters. Struck out 4. 2 1/3, 2 innings, 2 innings here and there. I gave him 4. I think that's fair. I don't think you really want to use Joey Cantillo here to attack the Cubs, though. This is a pitcher that you're probably taking out of the mix, given the likely lack of depth. He is still starting. They haven't announced an opener, right? Let me just actually see. Oh, you know what? I didn't grab the... What's he been doing in this stint in the minors? Maybe there's a little bit more depth. Hey, he did get out to 6 innings in 2 straight starts in AAA. So maybe good enough cause to give him the inning. Did I cut the innings? I thought I had. Take a look at it. Maybe I'll extend the innings back out a little bit for Cantillo. I didn't realize that he had stretched out a little bit. No, but wait. These are not recent. What the fuck is that note? Was stretched out as a starter in AAA? These are... That's not correct. Oh, this... I'm dumb. Never mind. That... The 6 innings in AAA was Horton. I didn't change it. Yeah, he only went 3 1/3 in those starts down in AAA. I'm not going to change it. Threw me off by accidentally not pulling up the player I was looking at there when I switched the game log. 3 1/3 on the 27th, 3 1/3 on the 21st in AAA. Struck out 4, struck out 5, gave up 4 earned runs to AAA hitters in his most recent one against the Cubs affiliate. 2 innings on the 15th, 3 innings on the 1st. Yeah, I'm going to dispute that he's gotten stretched out. I think 3 innings that I gave him, it was 3, not 4. I think the 3 innings I gave him is more than appropriate here. And if he gets to these projections, even in that sample might be surprising. 3.81 ERA at 3.27 xFIP, 11.4% walks. Does have a 29.3% strikeout rate in the show this year over those 28 1/3 in relief work. But again, as we've talked about before, that's kind of max effort work when you're working in a relief role. I really would be skeptical about any kind of path to success here with Cantillo against a very good Cubs team. And he's not even cheap enough. 7,000. The pitchers in the last game were cheaper. Not a lot of upside for Cantillo. Definite upside for Cubbies bats, 4.60 implied total for them. 4 on the other side, though. The Guardians on the board, at least. Still no lineup in. So some of the low strikeout guys up toward the top of the lineup, the Steven Kwan's, Jose Ramirez, and Carlos Santana's of the world, kind of obvious to work into against a kid who's just still finding his form, struggling to find strikeouts at the major league level. I think you want probably all 3 of those guys in the majority of your Guardian stacks if you're building with this team. At the very least, I think you're looking at 2 out of 3. It's kind of obvious those are 3 of their 4 best hitters. Kyle Manzardo in that mix up at the top as far as a power back goes. He's high strikeout, 25.7%. Also capable of drawing some walks, though. Push 5.8 up to 9.2 so far this year over year, as far as the walk rate goes. 12% barrel rate. He's hit 13 home runs in 272 chances. He's very cheap at 37.27 against a kid who gettable enough for premium contact, low strikeout. Seems like kind of an ideal Kyle Manzardo spot if you're looking at Guardians already. So definitely working him in his 223 ISO in 107 WRC plus. You can see they're kind of top heavy with where the runs are coming from in this lineup. Pretty weak bottom half here so far for the Guardians. Once you get down there, you do have Carlos Santana has been up and down so far in the year. He does have 10 home runs. He is getting on base, doesn't strike out, does draw walks. You just kind of take what you get for a fair price out of Santana. You do have the positional conflict with him and Manzardo, though. So that's probably your pivot point when you're taking like 3 of these guys is just which of the first basemen you're taking, and you're always booking Jose Ramirez, and you're taking a lot of Steven Kwan. Lane Thomas at 32.27, continuing to scuffle his way through this year. 4 homers, 4 steals, just a 56 WRC plus. Did hit 15 homers and stole 32 bags in a rough season last year over 528 chances. You can see this triple slash was terrible, was a point below average for WRC plus. Didn't even have a good ISO against those home runs. Year before, 28 homers, 20 steals, 201 ISO, a 109 WRC plus. Was just a different guy that year. Whether or not he ever returns to that form is somewhat up for debate. He's really not finding any barrels or hard hits along the way this year. He's striking out way more than he did those years. Walking a little bit more, which is nice, but it's not turning into anything. At 257 on base is atrocious. At the cheap price, if you're going there, you're just kind of keeping your fingers crossed that the old guy from 2 years ago shows up for a night, or even the guy from last year. He's not even that guy right now. It's been problematic. Daniel Schneemann, 37.25. A lot of positions on either site for a cheap price. He's okay. 8 home runs in 208 plate appearances. Solid 14.1% barrel, but a limited hard hit rate. And you can see what the barrel hard hit rate was last year. We're going to see normalization as we get more plate appearances. But 208, somewhat effective ones so far. 173 ISO, but just a 98 WRC plus. Bo Naylor, upside for barrels, upside for the oddball cheapo home run at catcher for 3,000 on DraftKings. Not a lot of appeal overall, but 9 home runs in 218 chances this year. Ano Martinez, Brian Rocchio down the bottom of the lineup, mix and match pieces at the absolute best, and they're barely even that. On the Cubbies side, that 4.60 implied total, definitely juicy. R. Jones saying, note to self, always play anyone who pitches against the Guardians. Hot trash bats. Ooh, Dougie, I don't know if I agree with that, buddy. I don't think I would take Brandon Pfaadt out of my player pool today. Larry's got 20% Soriano and 20% Atlanta in 20 lineups. So I like that. I think that's a good approach. Definitely the both-sided situation that we talked through in that game is visible all over the place in that game. I would play it the same way going against Elder with some Angels bats. Yeah, we'll get to Fott in just a minute, Doug. Just in case you got somewhere to be. That's the next game. Let me get through the Cubs. We're about to talk about it. Let me get through the Cubbies. Don't go anywhere. 460 implied total. Ian Happ is cheap at the top of the Cubs lineup on DraftKings. 4,100 is just too low. 3,200 on FanDuel is more realistic. He's hit 12 home runs. He's getting on at a 328 clip, creating runs 6% better than average, and has more in basically every department, as we've seen over multiple seasons with Ian Happ. Slight underperformances across the board for Happ this year, but still been very good in most situations. That's just a cheap price to take advantage of if you're going Cubs. Kyle Tucker at 6,100 is obviously a big price tag. So is PCA at 57. My preference would probably be to go Happ, Suzuki at just 51, who is way too cheap for his quality while still being at a fairly high price, and then pick one of Tucker and PCA, and I greatly prefer Tucker. So I'd be looking at something like that to start things out, or as a three-man. It's a $5,100 a piece three-man. So you get Suzuki at price, you get $1,000 discount on Tucker, and you pump Ian Happ up by $1,000 to a price that we would have paid in the past for Ian Happ. That's not a crazy price to pay for Ian Happ. So I like that three-man. I like what you can do with that average right there to attack Joey Cantillo and whatever comes out of the Cleveland bullpen. And then you get very good options to pile on top of that. You can bring price down somewhat with Carson Kelly there at 37 if he's in the lineup, especially against the lefty. A lot of right-handed pop in that bat for a cheap price from the catcher. Dansby at just 4,000 to fill out shortstop. Another big right-handed bat. A lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits out of Dansby. 14 home runs. He's been off the mark a little bit as far as on base goes. He's been striking out a little bit more, walking a little bit less this year. But there's tons and tons of quality in Dansby Swanson any given slate, and he's another guy who's just cheap for his talent, for his career history, for the power numbers that he's putting up this year. Easy to reach. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4 now. And then if you go 5, you skip over PCA. That's a $4,600 average to attack Joey Cantillo with the Cubs and use Ian Happ, Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, Dansby Swanson, and Carson Kelly. That is cheap, guys. That's a 5-man, $4,600 a man average. Michael Busch, 46-31, incredibly playable down lineup, 281, 375, 13 with 14 home runs. Nico, 3 home runs, 15 stolen bases, a 334 on base. Good correlated scoring option late in the lineup. 3,000 at second base on FanDuel, 39 at second base on DraftKings. More than capable of giving you a few base hits and maybe swipe a bag and score a couple of runs. That kind of a day plays on a slate like this, especially at second base. And then Matty Shaw is a mix and match caliber player down the bottom of the lineup. Let's not lie to each other about Matt Shaw's quality this year. Oh, man, I didn't see that. Max Muncy tore an ACL? That sucks. I love Max Muncy. You guys know that. The real Max Muncy. Original recipe Max Muncy. Late career MCL or ACL tear wouldn't exactly be good for last couple seasons either. All right, so this goes Cubs bats, cheap Cade Horton darts, Guardians bats, kind of right next to each other. Excuse me. I really don't think you're taking shots on 3 innings of Cantillo. That's one I think you probably do take out of the player pool. All right, Giants Diamondbacks. To dive in with Doug for Brandon Fott. 5.38 ERA. Ugly. Undeniably bad ERA over 17 starts, 85 and a third. 4.05 xFIP. It's a little higher than you'd want it, but it's still a very good xFIP under the covers, or at least as compares to that monster ERA. They're nearly a run and a half better. What he's given up is way too much premium contact this year. 13.8% barrels allowed, 49.5% hard hits, 92.3 miles an hour of exit velo, resulting in above a 4% home run rate and a pretty good chunk above. But strikeout-wise, 19.1% is a decline from last year. He was at 24.3 in a full season. In a partial season the year before, 22.3 when he first came up. So he's got a lot more to give in the strikeout department. He's lost some swinging strike, lost some CSW, just not throwing enough strikes overall. Obvious problems, but there's some quality peeking through in spite of all these problems. 19.1% strikeouts against 5.6% walks. It's not great as far as that strikeout total goes, but it's at least indicative of a player who's in command and in control of what he's doing. Last 2 times out has found the strikeout form a little bit more. 7 strikeouts in both of those games. One against Miami, one against Colorado, though, so you can say what you want about the opponents. Gave up 2 earned runs over 5 to Miami, gave up 4 earned runs at Coors Field, but we can kind of, again, forgive that a little bit. 2 starts prior to those 2 earned runs allowed exactly in 5 innings against Toronto and Seattle. 4 hits allowed to Toronto, 9 hits allowed to Seattle is a little bit rough. 2 of them home runs to create the 2 earned runs. Struck out 4 Mariners, struck out 3 Blue Jays. It's part of his ugly downturn, but the numbers are influenced, especially that ERA. He had that just atrocious game on May 31st where he didn't get an out. He faced 8 Nationals hitters. He gave up 6 hits and 8 earned runs and came out of the game without getting an out. That's going to break your ERA in half for the entire season if you do something like that. The 2 starts prior to that, 5 2/3 of 3-run ball against the Cards, 6 innings of 3-run ball against the Dodgers. He happened to not strike anybody out in that game, which is a little bit weird. But if it was 3 hits, 3 earned runs, they all came on. All right, so he allowed 3 solo shots. I didn't piece that together as I was talking it through. That's a weird start. 3 solo home runs allowed, got through 6. Those were the only 3 hits he allowed, the only 3 runs he allowed. Didn't strike anybody out and walk 1. That is a weirdly unique start. Going back further in the season, multiple 6-inning starts, multiple quality starts, handful of strikeouts in each game. He was not bad prior to that start on the 31st. A couple of weird ones in there and some home runs allowed for sure, but hadn't completely melted down very well. A 6-run game is a bad one. 4 2/3 against the Phillies, 2 home runs, 6 runs. So that's an ugly one. But there's enough to like. And knowing what he was last year, pitched to a 4.71 ERA, but a 3.58 xFIP, was much better at managing home runs, despite allowing some premium contact and power. 24.3% strikeouts against 5.5% walks. There is talent here. Could easily start another run of strong starts tonight against the Giants team that checks in with a 22.5% strikeout rate across this projected version of the lineup. They've got Rafi Devers in there now. He's been terrible since he joined this team, but we know that he is ridiculously talented. So a very, very threatening left-handed bat with tons of power, tons of premium hit, contact ability to throw against Brandon Pfaadt's struggles in that department. But Rafi strikes out at a 25.2% rate this year, 24.5 last year. If Pfaadt finds his stuff, the walks are a little bit less problematic. You got numerous guys here with double-digit walk rates, but Pfaadt doesn't really lose that many to walks. So some of his positive attributes, I think, could work their way through. They could easily exploit some of the negative attributes, but you don't have a single safe spot on this slate tonight. Robbie Ray on the other side of this game included. And Pfaadt cost 6,700 against the lineup with some strikeout in it. And if people are just sitting there saying, I don't want to play that guy, I'm taking him out of my pool, and so on and so forth, all the more reason to consider him. On a slate where we're talking about Jose Quintana, Cade Horton, options like that, Brandon Pfaadt is more established than Cade Horton and pitching better right now, even as bad as he's been, pitching better than that kid is. So if you're using him, you're using Brandon Pfaadt. 8,200 on FanDuel. I'm going to have some. It's not as appealing as 67 on DraftKings is, but I think he's well worth playing. Could it go bust? Absolutely. Every single pitcher on this slate could blow up in your face. Robbie Ray is your safest spot on the other side, but you're talking about a pitcher who's got a 9.5% walk rate. A pitcher who is allowing a 42.9% hard hit rate, which is over our 40% threshold for problems, and a 90.8 mile an hour exit velo that is over our 90 mile an hour threshold for problems. On a 16.7 degree average launch with nearly an 8% barrel rate allowed. Robbie Ray, no problem saying it, has gotten lucky to limit hitters to just 2.50% home runs so far this year, and he's gotten uncharacteristically lucky to be doing that. Last year in his 30 2/3, he allowed 4.65% home runs. Didn't really pitch the year before. Year before that, when he was good in a 3.71 ERA, 3.58 xFIP season, 27.4% strikeouts, still allowed tons and tons of premium contact and a bunch of home runs. And that was a trend going back in time. I could show you more. We still 4.27 in 2021. That was his excellent season. 2.84 ERA, 3.36 xFIP, 32.1% strikeouts that year. He was fantastic. That was the best he ever was. Still allowed nearly 10% barrels, 42.9% hard hits, 90.4 miles an hour of exit velo, and 4.27% home runs. You can always hit home runs against Robbie Ray. The rubber meets the road with his walks. If he's walking guys, giving you free passes, putting too many opportunities out there, and then you can capitalize on that power like teams just happen to have not so far this season. And again, happen to is the right wording there. That's when he looks good. 2.75 ERA, but a 3.71 xFIP. 27.5% strikeouts. Great. One of the better marks on this slate, if not the best. 13.6% swing. There's a lot to like. There's a reason he's expensive. There's a reason he should be the most popular pitcher on the slate. And he is the most highly projected pitcher on this slate. But he is in no way without flaws and without concerns. And if people run away with shares of Robbie Ray, I will have less than the field. And that's typically my approach with this pitcher. I like this Diamondbacks lineup. There's a lot of quality. They've got two guys in the 14 range against all that contact and power that Robbie Ray is allowing this year and has allowed historically. Ketel Marte, Joanny Suarez. If people are going to not have this team because of the preponderance of Robbie Ray shares in other lineups, I will definitely take a stake in Diamondback stacks in addition to having less Ray than the field. 415 implied total is not nothing for a team that can hit like this. A team that can draw walks. A team that doesn't strike out that much. This is an ideal opponent to grab as a stack against Robbie Ray. See if we got any of these lineups. We did get the Diamondbacks while I was ranting and raving. So we'll start with them. We'll see if we get the Giants in. D-backs, looking a little bit different. Blaze Alexander climbing the lineup from that projected spot down toward the bottom. Kind of interesting. Dead min price on FanDuel across three positions. That'll make things work as far as just stacking this team up. You pop Blaze Alexander in at, let's say, shortstop instead of going to a $3,300 Araldo Perdomo. That's a reasonable option. Alexander can hit a little bit. He's dirt cheap. You get Ketel at second base. No Josh Naylor in the lineup. That sucks. Suarez obviously is in that. And then I'm just trying to decide on who my fourth man is. It's probably just Lourdes Gurriel, but I can make a pretty strong case for Randall Grichuk at just 24, especially against the lefty. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to talk to you about a average price that's below $3,000, $2,950. I get Marte and Joanny Suarez, Blaze Alexander and Randall Grichuk. If you don't like Grichuk, you can go to not that much more expensive Lourdes Gurriel there. Even if you're just taking the established guys. Working down like that, that's a $3,400 average, $3,375. And you can still swap out like that. And this is only different because you've got Perdomo instead of Blaze Alexander. That's $33 a piece. Very, very usable Diamondback stack. Marte's a star, 18 home runs on the season, still getting on base at above a 400 clip, a 172 WRC plus. Perdomo gets on base, good table setter. I would have flopped those two in this lineup. Marte is the guy who would drive Perdomo in, not the other way around. Perdomo hits for average a little bit. He doesn't have all that much power. He hit 9 home runs early in the season, but only a 5.7% barrel, 31.5% hard hit. Doesn't strike out, draws a ton of walks. Again, ideal guys at the top of this lineup to throw at Robbie Ray. Lourdes Gurriel, not really drawing walks, but doesn't strike out. 13.5% this year, 18.3 last year, 17.4 the year before. Not having a good season, but also not having a terrible season. 98 WRC plus, just off the mark. A dozen home runs and 340 chances. He'll probably get to 20. We'll see what he does with that slash line. That'll decide the quality of the year. Joanny Suarez, not having those problems. 26 home runs, a monster slash line for him at 250, 319, 555, 305 ISO, 137 WRC plus. He's a lurking monster on this slate. I love his upside to hit a home run against Robbie Ray here. Randall Grichuk at 3,024. Again, very value oriented. 4 home runs out of him in 147 plate appearances. Look at the barrels. Look at the hard hits. It's a small sample of batted ball events, but that's not uncharacteristic for Randall Grichuk. That's what he does. Easy to play at 3,000 at 2,400 in the outfield. Just to put some numbers on Blaze Alexander. Got Blaze today. We had Blade yesterday. 241 plate appearances in AAA this year, slashing 284, 413, 479, creating runs 19% better than average by WRC plus, 196 ISO, 8 homers and 11 steals. 24.5% strikeouts, but 15.8% walks. This is as a 26-year-old in AAA. He's kind of dancing around the age line. Last year, he made 185 plate appearances for the big club, hit 3 home runs, stole 3 bags, slashed 247, 321, 343, was moderately effective as far as getting on base, but didn't really show us any power, struck out a little bit too much, 89 WRC plus in that small sample. Had a rough stint in 225 plate appearances in AAA. Not rough, but didn't have great output. 5 home runs, 4 steals in that. Solid slash line, though, last year. And then was coming off the year before in 2023, a pretty effective season. 328 plate appearances in AAA, his age 24 season. 290, 401, 472. So he was on base at a 400 clip that year, and he's been on base at a 400 clip over 241 chances in AAA this year. That's an interesting bat for the dead min when I could just stick him at second base. Even at third, it's not completely terrible. Not that you want him instead of Suarez, but just if you need like a cheap positional guy and he pops into your head, there's nothing wrong with that. James McCann hasn't really done much in his 12 plate appearances this year. He's got a 500, 667, 1,000 slash line so far with a home run, a 500 ISO, a 334 WRC plus. But outside of that little stretch, it's been a minute since James McCann has shown us much quality. Against the lefty, you can always work him in. That's always been what he's done. But it's a little bit difficult to see the quality if we just do something like, say, this. Eight home runs last year in 233 chances. Pretty underwhelming ISO, 11 points below average for run creation. Just 6th the year before. Was it a 77 WRC plus? Tim Tawa, Alec Thomas, down lineup, mix and match pieces. Both. Couple of home runs, couple of stolen bases out of both guys. Sub 300 on base, a 73 and an 83 by WRC plus so far. Not all that much quality. On the Giants side, we still don't have lineups. Yes, you absolutely should throw Giants at Brandon Pfaadt. In fact, it should probably be 2 Giants shares for every share of Pfaadt that you have. Fat, whatever we want to call him. This year he's fat. We'll see if he gets back to Pfaadt. Mike Yastrzemski, 41-28 up top. 8 home runs, 6 steals, a very solid 337 on base. If he's just going to be up there as a table setter, that's perfectly fine given how he's priced. And he's got more to give in terms of individual production. He's walking a lot this year. 106 WRC plus, has a little bit more thump in the bat than we've seen. Leads directly into Elliot Ramos for 45-32. Rafi Devers at 48-37. Rafi's gotten cheap again on DraftKings. That's usually a good indicator that he's about to go on an absolute tear. 17 home runs for him on the season. 15.9% barrels, 56% hard hits. Hasn't really done much in the 3 weeks that he's been on the Giants, but it's coming. It's not like he just forgot how to play baseball on the opposite coast. Ramos, tremendous contact, 13 homers in 368 chances, a pretty solid slash line, especially that 351 on base is tremendous. 5 stolen bases, doesn't run all that much, but a good correlated scoring option with tons and tons of individual upside for a very fair price on both sides. Wilmer is a mix and match quality player with a little bit of situational home run upside. He's low strikeout. He's got a very good spot in the lineup most of the time. He's okay. I don't love filling first base with Wilmer, but he's always playable. I like him better than Dom Smith at 35-25. Dom's never been much of a bat, never stuck at the major league level like Wilmer has. 1 home run this season. Every now and again, he can turn on one. He gives you a little bit of quality in terms of low strikeout and medium walk rate in most of his larger samples, but there's not a ton to see there. Willy Adames at 37-29. Somebody was calling for the Willy Adames home run. Wouldn't be a bad spot to go find it. 11.5% barrels, 44.5% hard hits. We need that life raft to cling to. He's got 10 homers on the season, just a 136 ISO. It's been ugly, but at least this is around where we want it. That's the one thing we're eyeballing here when we go to Willie shares. He's gotten very, very cheap. Young Lee at 43, 3,000, playable in the heart of this lineup, or at the bottom part of this lineup, 246, 315, 406. Hasn't been great this year, but still 3 points above average for run creation. And then Patty Bailey, Tyler Fitz, a little bit problematic down the bottom of the lineup so far this season. Another 2 guys, sub 300 on base, 56 and 75 WRC plus. Mix and match, especially around the cheap catcher. Bailey's got a little bit more talent than what he's shown us so far this year, but not great. Last year, 8 home runs in 448 chances. Year before, 7 in 353. Not a lot there. Robbie Ray, reluctantly. Diamondbacks bats. Giants bats. Brandon Pfaadt. but Brandon Pfaadt is much more on that list than it might seem like he is, much more on the overall slate list. Just because he ranks 4th in this game doesn't mean he's not playable, doesn't mean he should stay out of your lineups. He should be in lineups today. OMG says I'm down with that pronunciation-wise. Yes, again, especially this year. I was up with the Pfaadt or whatever he wants to be called pronunciation previously, but you're going like this? You're going to get all pear-shaped like that on me when I start you? Yeah, you're Brandon Pfaadt until further notice. Whole bunch of text coming in. Weird. Anyway. Royals, Mariners. Rounding things out with Seth Lugo, Logan Evans here. 83.95 for Lugo, differently priced across sites. Definitely more impactful to the DraftKings slate at the 83.95. You got to pay it today. Given the lack of overall options, he's one of the better starters on the slate. 2.74 ERA, but a much uglier 4.01 xFIP, and that's probably your more realistic number overall. 21.6% Ks against a handful of walks at 8%, but a good 1.08 whip. He's allowed some premium contact this year. That's an aggressively high hard hit rate. A lot of exit velo, 8.6% barrels, 3.41% home runs. Probably a little lucky to not have another 0.5% on that, be over 4. PFAT. There you go, Tiz. I like it. We've seen Lugo in good enough form more than enough times to know that he can smoke his way through this Mariners team. Last year, a few more strikeouts over his 206 innings, a terrific 3.0 ERA, but a 3.83 xFIP, just a 1.09 whip. A lot of these numbers are looking a lot like a lot of these numbers outside of the hard hits and exit velo, which is where we might get burnt if the Mariners get to him. A couple guys get on base against that walk. Even though he hasn't allowed much via BABIP, he does put guys on base with the free pass, and he doesn't have lights out, punch your way out of trouble kind of stuff. Just an 8.2% swinging, 27.1% CSW. So if you get that opportunity, Mariners need to capitalize, obviously, but you got some big bats that could certainly do it. Cal Raleigh, notwithstanding, 13.38 in the home run model. Not alone, though. Randy Rosarena, very solid premium contact numbers. Luke Raley, excellent premium contact numbers and sustainable over time. Dominic Canzone putting up excellent premium contact numbers in 69 plate appearances so far this year, and those jibe with his numbers from previous seasons in moderate samples. There's a lot of hard hit going down that lineup. And then the more obvious guys up top, like Julio Rodriguez, obviously Cal. Jorge Polanco, who's having a up and down but somewhat okay season in terms of premium contact and power and avoiding strikeouts and doing interesting DFS things. And then a tremendous table setter like JP Crawford up top who can exploit that walk, who can get on in the first plate appearance and set the tempo for this team to go off, sequence, cycle, create some runs, hit one key home run, and we're off and running, and we're ruining Seth Lugo's day at that price, especially on FanDuel, at what the popularity will probably be on DraftKings. So there's a lot of negative if the Mariners happen to cash in on the downside of Lugo. He's extremely important to the slate as far as playing him on the mound, but I would absolutely take a look at some potentially lower owned than they ought to be Mariners on the other side in some different lineups. It's not a situation where that's necessarily created by Lugo and saying like, oh, I need to hedge this because he's not that good. He is that good. You can be fine playing Lugo and not having any Mariners. Just with how they angle into this slate, though, where I would expect them to be underowned for their quality, I think they just get interesting independent of anything to do with him. Royals bats against Logan Evans. Evans is kind of interesting here too. 3.38 ERA, a 4.25 xFIP over 7 starts, 40 innings. Just an 18% strikeout rate on 7.5% swinging, 25.8% CSW. He's not a pitcher who finds many Ks. He's facing a team that doesn't give you many Ks. So maybe we kind of discount that on both sides and just try and ride and find some clean innings for a very cheap 67 on DraftKings, 77 on FanDuel. He gave us 5 in his most recent start. That was against the very good Diamondbacks team out in the desert. 4 earned runs allowed, struck out 5, walked 2, gave up a home run. Not a great start, but not a completely god-awful start either. The one before that, really interesting start against Washington. 8 innings, 1 run ball, 4 strikeouts and a walk, just 4 hits allowed to 27 Nationals. Went 6 in the 2 starts prior to that one. Gave up 4, so didn't book the quality start against the White Sox at Chicago, but struck out 7 in that game. He allowed 3 home runs in that one, but only gave up 4 earned runs. Weird start there. 6 clean innings against the Padres, just 3 strikeouts, but it's the Padres. Gave up 7 hits, but no runs. Up and down kind of start, but again, got the quality start. So depending on which site we're playing on, which scoring system we're looking at, there's some good, there's some bad in those starts. I think he's at least interesting against a Royals team that's at a 3.72 implied total in a pitcher's park. What they're not going to push is the strikeout upside, but they've been limited as far as their run creation. There are 3 guys in this lineup who have been above average for run creation this year, and that's it. So if you're going to take a spot to try and make a little stand on Logan Evans Hill, it might as well be against this low-scoring Royals team. Much as I like some of these bats, that would be a situation where maybe not in any kind of 1-for-1, but if I have, a handful of Logan Evans, I would probably have 1 or 2 Royal stacks along the way there. A couple of these guys still look pretty decent, like Bobby Witt, superstar against anybody, a little bit underpriced at 52 on DraftKings, 38 on FanDuel. 11 home runs, 23 steals, 126 WRC plus, one of the good run creators. Vinny Pasquantino is another one, 104 WRC plus out of Vinny. Solid slash line, still underwhelming given that rough start that we saw, but everything has been fine, and we're just gradually climbing our way back to respectability with Vinny, and the run creation's been great. The 330 X Woba is something to like. 4,200 is very cheap for him. 3,000, perfectly fine. 42-31 for a guy who's been as productive as Michael Garcia doesn't really make too much sense to me. Really, really cheap on DraftKings. 8 home runs, 18 steals, 363 on base, a 131 WRC plus. If I'm attacking Logan Evans with Royals, those 3 guys are absolute priorities. Jonathan India not really getting on base like he's supposed to, hasn't created runs effectively for this season, just not doing what he's supposed to be doing out there. No home runs, 4 home runs, no stolen bases. Not a lot of productivity out of India. Really disappointed in his season so far. Could have a dynamite second half, though, given the skill set, given the fact that he's not striking out. He is still drawing walks, getting on base moderately effectively, but that could improve in a hurry. He could find his correlated scoring ability, hit a couple more home runs, finds a little bit of success via BABIP. That's why he finds his way into lineups when I build with this team a lot. He fills second base, he's cheap, and he's got quality in direct line correlated scoring. So he's still in the mix, where you have to decide between him and a bigger bat like Sal Perez, like Jack Caglianone down lineup. I prefer the bigger bats in the 4-man, but India's not out of the mix up at the top. Sal still carrying that monster barrel rate, 9 home runs on the year, substandard slash line, 347 xWOBA is what I'm looking at, the 12.7% barrels, the cheap pricing, 3,300 for Sal Perez against this pitcher. Come on now. That's really, really cheap on DraftKings. They're trying to tempt us into taking some Royals here. Jack Caglianone at just 28 is part of that conversation too. 2 home runs and 103 chances, otherwise had not performed up to his abilities, but it's coming. The kid is too good to not succeed at least a little bit in this first call-up season, this second half of this season. So I expect him to come on 8.2% barrels, 43.8% hard hits. He is quietly hitting the ball with authority, if nothing else, at the major league level. So we will see that turn into some success. Drew Waters, John Rave, Kyle Isbell down lineup, mix and match pieces, all if that, 66, 41, 66 WRC plus marks. They're all playable at cheap pricing, but they're not appealing in any way. I briefly talked through these Mariners, but just to round it out, JP Crawford's really cheap, given how much he gets on base, ahead of Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh directly. 387 on base, a 129 WRC plus. Even if he's not hitting home runs, stealing bases, or doing anything outside of reaching first and then scoring when those guys do their thing, he's got value at those prices on a slate like this. Really like the upside for Crawford. Julio at 48.31 is cheap. 11 homers, 13 steals. He's going to come back in the second half. It just seems to be the kind of player that he is. Cal's obvious. Polanco is cheap. 35.26 with second base. 11 home runs. I know that he's been in decline, but he's still only at 13.2% strikeouts. Not that many walks, so a lot of well-struck balls in play, if nothing else, for a cheap price. That's effective. That works against the kind of pitcher that Seth Lugo is. Arozarena, hitting the ball really hard, 43.32 is a great price for a guy with 12 home runs, 15 steals, and a 361 on base, a 134 WRC plus. That's a silly price to have Randy Arozarena add on DraftKings. That's really cheap. Definitely adds to the appeal. And then having Raley at just 34. Look at where Raley's at. It's a small sample. It's 122 plate appearances, and he hasn't found a ton of success for it. But 12% barrels, 48% hard hits, jibes directly with where he's been in the past. Last year, just last season, 22 home runs and 11 steals that nobody seems to remember in 455 chances. A 129 WRC plus. The year before, 19 homers, 14 steals in 406 chances. A 241 ISO, a 130 WRC plus. Stretched to a full sample, those are star caliber numbers. He's not great at hitting for average, but he gets on base. He steals bags. He hits the ball extremely hard. Luke Raley is just good, and he's really cheap against a not great righty, a middle of the road kind of righty. Can zone. Again, 14% barrels, 45.6% hard hits, as I was illustrating before, that jibes directly with his previous production. It's only 69 plate appearances, but dude's hit 5 home runs already. 258 ISO. Obviously, that pace is going to cool. Last year, he hit 8 in 188 chances and was sub Mendoza, so we temper expectations. But he is showing a lot right now in a small sample. And then there's Ben Williamson and Cole Young also taking up space at the bottom of the lineup. Both those guys are hitting 250. But they're sub 300 on base, substandard WRC plus. They're mix and match guys down lineup at best. I will say Seth Lugo, Mariners bats, Logan Evans, Royals bats. But I could get into some Royals if they come up a little bit light and people get carried away with Evans shares, which they probably won't. Keith Vape likes the mini Sal and Bobby Witt, takes care of onesie position. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's a really good combination of just two incredibly talented upside players against a very, very gettable pitcher that people aren't going to be going to that much. And yeah, if you're just grabbing it as a cheap two-man, I mean, what's the two-man price with Sal as cheap as he is? I mean, Witt on his own is underpriced, but if you're doing that, $4,250 a piece, I have no issues with it. Sal should be at $4,300 probably, and paying $43 for Bobby Witt alongside it works nicely for me. And honestly, if you wanted to stretch to a third and work Gaglione in there at 28, 37.67 a piece, Vinny as a dynamite third man, Garcia, there's a lot to work with there. But that two-man that you called out is uniquely cheap for those two talents. And again, Sal, maybe off the mark as far as the results, but not really as far as how he's actually just striking the baseball. So I like it. Dodgers with a monster total. I regret to inform you that the home run pick of the day came from the Dodgers today, but I did use one of their lower owned, or at least per RG's ownership projections, one of their lower owned bats. Going up against Aaron Savali, who's allowed a 4.17% home run rate on 9.9% barrels, an extreme fly ball trajectory, even without a lot of exit velo or hard hit rate. There's just a lot of mistakes that are going up on such a fly ball trajectory that it becomes somewhat easy, somewhat reliable to hit home runs against this form of Aaron Savali. 4.74 ERA, a 5.26 xFIP, sub or nearly a 17% strikeout rate, just over 17%. 9.5% walks. This has been really bad form overall in 8 starts, 38 innings for Savali. Last time out, 4 innings of 1-run ball, 3 hits against the Giants, struck out 4 and walked 4. Start before that, 7 innings of 5-run ball, 9 hits allowed at Toronto, 2 home runs, 2 strikeouts and a walk. String of 2-run games prior to that. That was the 2nd, the 9th, and the 15th, but no depth. 5 1/3, 4 2/3, 5 innings. No real strikeout totals, just 5 in 2 of those games, 4 in another one. Handful of runs, 6 hits, 5 hits, and 7 hits. So if those count negative, doesn't really work out that well. And a 3 home run game against the Yanks back beginning of the year, March 30th. It's a lot of downside with Savali. He has had his seasons where he's been decent. Last year kind of fell apart. Year before in 122 and a third was pretty good. 3.46 ERA, 4.10 xFIP, spiked strikeouts, especially at the end of the year, and then just didn't really turn in great results. This isn't a bad 31 starts, but it's also not a good 31 starts. You would maybe consider that guy as a cheap 5th starter if you were building a major league rotation, but that's all he is. And it's continued this year. So yes, in a big, big way to the extremely obvious, extremely popular, extremely expensive Dodgers. On the White Sox side, Pretty hard, no? They're going up against Dustin May, 78, 88. Just as a mixer, low-owned guys, sure, they're very cheap. I would focus on the Mike Tauchmans, the Chase Meadroffs of the world, their skills at getting on base, and then pick one of the guys behind them to hit the oddball home run, like Lennon Sosa, Miguel Vargas, one of those guys. But it is not a good team. It is not a comfy lineup, even for contrarian reasons. Just to build bad contrarian lineups with, there are better options. Weak team. Should be victimized by Dustin May if his stuff is on point. 4.68 ERA, a 4.32 xFIP on the season. It's come and gone a little bit this year from May. 20.8% strikeouts and 9.7% walk rate. 4 innings last time out, gave up 4 earned to the Royals at Kansas City. Just 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. Had a bad 3 home run game against the Nationals, but those were the only 3 runs he allowed on 5 hits. Struck out 5, walked 2 over 6 innings. He's given up runs in basically all of his starts throughout the season. That's been the problem. We don't have one real clean game to point to. Not many monster run totals, but enough that it bends DFS days. He's not expensive on DraftKings at 78. I think it works a little bit better here if you're accounting for any run scoring against. If you're accounting for the idea that maybe finally against a really weak White Sox team, maybe we get a decent day as far as limiting the other team for runs. Yeah, the only really weak team he faced Colorado and Miami all the way back in mid-April and late April. Since then, since the start of May, Atlanta, Arizona, the Angels, Arizona, the Guardians, the Mets, the Pods, the Giants, the Nationals, the Royals. That's a stretch of, maybe not the best teams in the game, but that's a stretch of solid mid-board type teams. So not surprising that, 2-3 runs in a lot of those starts. Maxed out at 5 as a downside through that stretch. Worst start of the year came back on the 22nd, faced the Cubs at Chicago. Gave up 7 earned on 10 hits. But man, does he have good horizontal movement on some of his pitches. Man, could he find some swinging strikes against this White Sox team, even though he checks in today at an 8% swinging strike rate. I expect more. I like the upside at 78. I'll play the upside at 88. I don't love that FanDuel price. I wish it was a little bit cheaper. But to target the White Sox, I think we take our chances with a talented pitcher. Didn't stall long enough for either of those lineups to come in. Cubs lineup came in. Looks pretty much like what we talked about. Guardians lineup, I think, is exactly the one we talked about. No, Nolan Jones slides into it. I don't think we had Nolan Jones in that projected. Another guy, much like Lane Thomas, that was really good 2 years ago, disaster last year, continuing his disastrous performance so far this year. But there is talent there. Lane Thomas and Nolan Jones together in an outfield. It's really shaky, but they're 2 quality guys with power and speed that can make a lineup interesting from a DFS perspective. So those guys would be in the mix if I'm building stacks of Guardians against Cade Horton there, just to round out that game from a couple games ago. So again, if you're going White Sox, you're looking at the on-base skills. Mike Tauchman at a 350 on base. Chase Meadross still clinging to a 347 on base, but he's been plummeting lately. Down to 260, 347, 308, just a 312 xWOBA, just a 92 WRC plus. He doesn't hit the ball hard. What he is a base hit oriented player, doesn't strike out, draws a fair amount of walks. So correlated scorer, a table setter for sure, but we already have that in Mike Tauchman. We didn't necessarily need 2 of those, especially not when it leads into just nothing. There's just nothing behind those 2 table setters. Benintendi's hit 10 home runs. He's carrying a 210 ISO. That is just not who Andrew Benintendi is. Last year, he hit 20 in 522 chances, had a 168 ISO. Year before, in 621 opportunities, he hit 5. 0.94 ISO. Year before that, he also hit 5 in 521 chances, 0.95 ISO. Yes, he's turned into more of a situational home run hitter in the last 2 seasons or season and change, but it's not like it's come on ridiculous hard hits. He has barreled some balls. That's where the situational aspect comes from. But last year, with the 20 home runs, it was just 6.3% barrels. There's nothing special there. He's low strikeout, medium walk, always has been. He's playable because he's 29, 27 if you're going to this team. That is not a good hitter. That is not a reason to go to the White Sox. Miguel Vargas, a lot of same. 10 home runs out of him. Even more difficult to see, I would say. 177 ISO. 9.4% barrels, 42% hard hits, at least is somewhat, maybe realistic, but it's a big spike over where he was the last couple seasons. Kyle Teal has hit the ball hard in his rookie year, 61 pretty decent plate appearances out of him. He's probably in the mix if I'm building on DK. Maybe I'm going like 1-2 and hoping for the best with the third guy from there and just take the catcher off the board. For 3,000, it's not a terrible way to fill catcher. 300, 410, 380 over 61 chances. A couple hard hit balls in his limited sample of batted ball events. Hasn't done much with it, but at least there's talent there. There's pedigree there, and he fills a cheap position. Lenyn Sosa is one of your odd duck home run candidates. 7.9% barrels, 43.2% hard hits. One of the better bad players in terms of just you get the occasional DFS result out of him. 6 home runs, 273, 293, 406, 93 WRC plus. In no way reliable, one of their more playable bats. Josh Rojas, Brooks Baldwin down lineup. Neither of those guys is overly appealing. Baldwin, once upon a time, was supposed to have a little something, hasn't really shown it to us at the major league level yet. Maybe it comes around eventually, but not tonight. Ryan Noda's the kind of wild card down lineup. 1 home run in 35 chances. He comes in at the dead min price at first base, where you don't need to play Miguel Vargas higher up in the lineup. 2,200 on FanDuel, same deal. Last year in 111 plate appearances was not good. 2 years ago in 495 chances, 16 home runs, and a really, really interesting 364 on base. Creator runs 23% better than average that year. Not much better than just, replacement level in most aspects of hitting. Drew a 34.3% strikeout rate in that good season where he was getting on base like crazy, but a 15.6% walk. Was similar in the bad year last year, similar in the tiny sample of plate appearances so far this year. Ryan Noda, if you're going to White Sox, is not uninteresting if he's hitting ninth, if he's hitting cleanup, or if he's hitting leadoff. If he's hitting basically anywhere else in the lineup, he's less appealing. I don't think he hits second. If he hits second, he's also appealing. But his on-base skills, if you're just considering like a DFS option, and you use him as the wraparound from down there for 2, for the White Sox fans, for some reason, I'm trying to build a 5-man White Sox stack here. Obviously, these 2. So now I've got 3 really good table setters that continue to lead into absolutely nothing. I would still take Teal. And then since I'm blocked at first, I guess I'm taking Benny, which I don't really like. Actually, you know what? Instead of that, I think I would take Sosa. I would do that. Grab 2 chunks of the middle and then the 9-1-2 wraparound. And now you got connectivity from those 2 middle bats to everybody. My spend is 28.20 a man. So I think I can afford whatever I want in the other spots in this lineup. I think that's the best White Sox stack you could build if this is what the lineup looks like. It's not good. It's not likely. You might be leaving out the guy who drives in all these guys that get on base. But it's what I can do. It's the White Sox. They're not good. Dodgers are really good. They're difficult to build with. But as we saw yesterday when I was doing the exercise, leaving Ohtani out works wonders for your average price. You can just do that. You're at 4,600. It's still expensive, but you're getting Mookie Betts, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, and today's home run pick of the day, Andy Pages. 9.15 in the home run model for Andy, 17 on the season, a 217 ISO, 131 WRC plus. When I looked at ownership projections earlier over on RG, everybody on the Dodgers above Andy Pages in this lineup was very, very popular. Double digits and beyond popularity. Andy Pages was in the low single digits. That's why I made him the home run pick of the day. It would be really interesting if he's not owned in this lineup against Aaron Savali here. Love the upside. Even if he's popular, he's probably going to be less popular than the Teoscars and Mookies of the world. Lot to like about Pages. Michael Conforto, below Pages in the pecking order and in the lineup here. 3,000, 1,200 less expensive for a guy who's hitting the ball almost exactly the same with a better hard hit rate when he's making contact. He's not seeing any kind of results for it, but the contact is similar. The talent is similar. Lefty bat against the scuffling righty. I will take the discounted shares of Michael Conforto if I'm building with Dodgers. I like that spot. Still drawing a 12.4% walk rate to boot. Just 23.6% strikeouts is not bad. Again, no results for it. Terrible luck. Terrible output. 124 ISO, 6 home runs. There's nothing to like over there. Don't look on that side of the board. Look over here. Tommy Edman, Ha-Seong Kim, mix and match pieces. Kim's been pretty good, over 94 chances, fills out multiple positions for a fair price. More so on FanDuel at 26. 41 is not unreasonable on DraftKings, but it also doesn't really help with any of these prices. That price helps a little bit more. 368, 415, 517, 2 homers, 8 steals, a 163 WRC plus. It's been interesting when he's been in the lineup, which is every now and again. Edman hit all those home runs in a rush and then completely normalized back to Tommy Edman. I'm not sure what happened there, but it was a blip, nothing more. But he's always playable at multiple positions, more so again on FanDuel than at 36 on DraftKings, but at least you get him at second base over there, which works. Shohei Ohtani's a superstar. You don't want to leave him out of stacks, but he's just super, super expensive. So that's the path to getting a bunch of Dodgers in, is just kind of going around Ohtani and hoping that you get it right. Mookie's been struggling through the season. I think that's fair to say at this point. 9 home runs, 6 steals, 246, 322, 375 over 348 plate appearances. It's been ugly. Down to 96 WRC plus. You're getting a discount for it now, but he's still pricey overall. Will Smith is one of the best catcher bats, full stop. Freddie Freeman, same thing at first base. Teoscar's got tons and tons of power, 14 home runs, a solid barrel rate at 11.7%. 263, 297, 481. You can nitpick some underwhelming things there, particularly around the on-base percentage, but he's quite a bit better than that overall. Any way you can put the Dodgers together where you're finding a little bit of an offset for ownership, great. I think Andy Pajas and Michael Conforto are your clearest paths to that. Everybody else going to be popular. Everybody else is expensive, but they're all obviously stars. Major spot. Dodgers bats, Dustin May, White Sox bats, and then Aaron Savali. And the White Sox bats and Aaron Savali are really not all that much on the board. Basically 2 hours on the nose, coming up on the 2-hour mark right about. If I stall for another couple seconds, keep talking slow. I did this too early. I wasn't planning on any of this. It just kind of happened when I saw the clock. Now we're ticking down to 1 2-hour show. 5:30 on your clocks. Time to get out of here. Time to get things updated up on the site so everybody can build lineups. Remember, 6:45 start on FanDuel today. 7 start on DraftKings. Not sure if it's, 7:07? 7:07 start with Yankees and Blue Jays on DraftKings. Really interesting slate, guys. You've got the nominal ace up top. Shaky, uncomfortable, going up against a very good lineup. Missing a couple key pieces. No Carroll still, obviously, and no Josh Naylor for the Diamondbacks. So a downgrade for them, a little bit of a bump for Robbie Ray in the overall. But I don't trust Robbie Ray. Never have, never will. That's a really interesting slate leader up at the top. Projects out. I will have some, but I'll also have some D-backs bats against. Lugo's interesting, especially at that DK price. More than enough to beat that Mariners team, but they got more than enough to bend his day and really ruin it at 95 on FanDuel. Schmitty, low strikeout Blue Jays, tough spot. Could get Will Warren, maybe not as bad, but a couple few runs, especially at 96 on FanDuel. Again, kind of bends your evening, even without a major impact against. You need a good performance, especially with a lack of strikeouts projected. May against the White Sox is really interesting. I think he gets popular at those prices, obviously offset while not being offset in projection, a little bit lower price than everybody up at the top. Peterson, 9,085 against the Brewers, more than enough to beat them, but underwhelming overall this season as compared to years past. There's enough to like about the Brewers' upside. There's a little bit of weather to be concerned about in that game. Bassett against the Yankees, not normally a pitcher I would be really considering all that much against the Yanks and the way they're projecting against him, but given that they have flaws, given that bad pitchers have found success and find strikeouts, Chris Bassett's still quite a bit better than like Kyle Hendricks. So I think you can go to Bassett as much as you can go to the Yankees. Brendan Pfaadt, we talked about quite a bit. Brendan Pfaadt, 67 on DraftKings is a major asset on this slate. I think he's got more than enough to play that spot. 82 on FanDuel, same deal. You could easily get absolutely crushed by playing Brendan Pfaadt today. That might blow up in your face, but that's also true of every single other starter on this slate. So I will take the discount on a kid that I know in my bones has talent. Jose Quintana, mix and match piece. Logan Evans, maybe we can get to some shares, mix and match our way through again at a very cheap price. It's just, I'd rather target this San Francisco lineup with Brandon Pfaadt, who is quite a bit better than Logan Evans, than targeting this KC lineup. If it was the other way around and Evans was facing the Giants, that would be an interesting conversation because the Royals, just their nature is to be very low strikeout, even with their flaws as far as run creation goes. Jeter Ken's on FanDuel, maybe a dart or two, but I'm not really seeing it. Soriano, just a little high priced on the FanDuel slate at 86, a lot more playability at 74 on DraftKings is in the mix over there. More concerning on FanDuel, but wouldn't shock to see him limit home run output from the Braves. That's what he does well. Kate Horton is loosely playable. 6,200 is very cheap on DraftKings. There are enough Ks in that Guardians lineup. We'll see. But we're throwing the dart, and then so is Bryce Elder against the Angels with all the strikeouts in that lineup. If Elder's able to check their power, which is an attribute for him, 74-65 on this pitching board is not crazy for Bryce Elder. Jake Irvin's pretty rough. That would be a hard no, I think, on that FanDuel slate, not available on DK. And then these guys are very challenged. I know I said I wouldn't take anybody out of the pitching pool, but I'm probably limiting those guys, if I leave them in at all, to like 1% of whatever lineups I run. And then fewer shares than that of an actual portfolio. That's about it. Andy Paez, home run pick of the day. Fire away, guys. I didn't mention the promo once since the start of the show. I didn't mention the website. I'm really bad at plugging things sometimes. I need people to start paying me for plugs so that I can remember to actually plug. Then I would put out like a whole little show plan and everything. Right now, just winging this shit. Promo code sarcastic with a K where it doesn't belong in the middle of the word instead of the C that was normally in the middle of the word. Gets you 50% off of a week or a month over at rotoscouts.com. That's through tomorrow. If you're running to the wall and like you wanted to subscribe Saturday morning because your subscription's renewing, whatever, you know where to find me. Just ping me, guys. I'll make it work for you. All right. But most importantly, go over to rotoscouts.com. Pick yourself up a subscription. $3 gets you to next Thursday on a weekly, like 11 something, I think, for a monthly to get to next month. Covering every baseball main slate the rest of the way. You have access to anything else that hits that site. Football's right around the corner. All sorts of stuff going on. Discord is linked in the description below. That's free to everybody. You don't have to be a subscriber. On your way down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button on this video, follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Keith Vape, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Awesome show. Awesome show right back at you. You made some good points in there in the chat. I saw it. Appreciate you. Larry C., Doug Gilly, appreciate you guys too. Again, guys, you absolutely rock. If you've been here for any chunk of this show, I don't care if you're just stopping by for 10 minutes. The fact that you come by at all is appreciated on this end. All right. Every single one of the likes, the subscriptions on YouTube, over at the website, it's all super appreciated. That's one of the reasons I want to keep that price point as low as I can. I really think we serve a purpose here where we're getting to people who don't want to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for their subscription. That's why it's under $1 a day for normal pricing. Here to serve the people. DFS for the people. Let's go. Go get them, guys. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do. Drop them in Discord. Tweet them at the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. We'll see them. Love seeing those. Makes my night when you guys do well. Whether I'm doing well or not, just makes my night seeing you guys do well. So go get them, and we will be back for more on what looks like a pretty big Friday slate. There were a bunch of games. I'm not sure whether some were in the afternoon, but could be a monster tomorrow. I'm not sure. Either way, we'll be here to cover it. See you guys.